Call this meeting of the Church-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is now 6 o'clock. Roll call.
All board members are present except Ms. Dreisbach.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Yep, we'll get it up. If there's no objection from the rest of the board members, I'd like to use a little privilege here and have Trustee John Carew would like to make a statement. We'll move up. What is it regularly on there?
It's item C1.
We'll move C1 up to now. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Appreciate that, Mr. Westbrook. As I'm sure anybody who's read the agenda has noticed that one of the items is for my resignation tonight. A lot of people have asked why, and it's been kind of a hush-hush thing until it was finalized, but the bottom line is I was offered a position out of state that came at unexpectedly, and just to be blunt, we were on a cruise and we had no signal, and I happened to dock at one of the ports, and I got a phone call message, so I checked it, and it says, you know, you've been offered a job, you have 24 hours to accept it, and that was 17 hours ago. So we sat there and had to make a decision within about 4 hours before we left, and so we decided, we made it, and we accepted it, and we were waiting for the final, you know, you've been approved and all that good stuff, and it finally came, and so I will be effective the 22nd of September will be my last day on the school board, but that's the reason why I've accepted a position, and that's about all I can say at this point with it. But I would like to say a couple other things, I guess a little background, and a lot of this people may or may not know, and just so I can kind of go through it. When I was a little kid, I was about 3 years old, I was taken away by the state of Texas through Child Protective Services due to a pretty abuseful and neglectful situation. They ended up severing my parental ties. I went through foster home and foster home, ultimately being adopted. My speech was way behind the average child entering into kindergarten at the time, and I ended up with a really lovely family that, you know, a minister and his wife who obviously became my mom and dad, and I had a lot of teachers that spent a lot of extra time with me, you know, working with my speech and working with me because I was so developmentally behind. And I always knew as I was growing up that in some way I was going to give back. Ultimately, you know, I served in the military, and then I became a police officer for 20 years. Towards the end of my police career, I started overseeing the school resource officer program. And through that resource officer program is when I first got a kind of the inside, I guess, view of what was going on in the school district and with the children. And to be honest, I just really enjoyed working with the kids, and I really enjoyed being a part of that. And I decided to run for school board, and I ran the first time, and I won't say somebody on the other end beat me willy-nilly, but they beat me. And I lost, I think, once or twice, and I finally was elected. And I want to say that this has been honestly one of my most fun things I've ever done. I've enjoyed some of the decisions that we've been a part of. I've enjoyed the outcomes of them. I'd like to say a few things. I had 4 kids go through the district at various levels. My oldest just started college this weekend after graduating from Steele, which was quite the experience, you know, getting her in her dorm or whatever. And I just want to say, first of all, thanks to all the teachers. I honestly think that they give 100% every day. They've dealt with my kids, and I couldn't say that I would do anything different. They have been phenomenal. And that goes for all the district employees, not just the teachers. And I truly, truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate everything they've done. I will say I am probably very passionate about what I do, and so I thank the staff here, because I know that there's probably times that y'all have left and, you know, probably said a few nice things about me, some of my requests, but I appreciate all y'all's patience and y'all's tolerance of everything that I requested. I'd like to say I appreciate the support that the citizens have given me. I also appreciate the support that the citizens didn't give me. I think a lot of people called and complained, which I'm sure all of us get, but I think that showed a different viewpoint from different people, and I hope that the decisions we made were in the best interest of the district as a whole. And I think I will say this, and regardless of individual differences, regardless of different preferences, I truly believe that the board up here truly has the best interest of the district and the employees and everything in mind. I think sometimes we just had different views of how we go about getting there, but in the end, I think we all want the same thing, and that's to have the #1 district with the #1 employees, with the best kids that graduate from here, ready for life. And so I just like to say from, you know, bottom of my heart, thank everybody for all the support. Thank y'all.
This is a action item that requires a motion to accept the trustee Cruz resignation. See, what page is that? 163. Wing it.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Trustees accept the signed resignation of John Crew, Board Assistant Secretary, effective September 22nd, 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say in that motion, I reluctantly make that motion. We're going to miss you, and I wish you the best.
I will say that, you have anything, Gary? No. I will say, even when I first started, I sought out his advice, because I knew he had run before. He was in the, at Schertz PD, and so I thought that we had a very, you know, sort of the brotherhood of blue type relationship. He did speak to me, gave me some honest, and he gave me some very good advice, and I think he was the last person I spoke to, but ever since then, I think it's been great. And so I will tell you this, when it comes to service, I think George Patton says, you know, always give more than what is expected, and John has given way more than expected. I know plenty of board members, not on this board, I should say, when you go to TASA, TASB, or any other convention, that just sort of take their duties lightly and enjoy just showing up and taking a vote. And John was nothing but the opposite. He was all in, full-throated approach, and he gave his all, and I do appreciate it, everything he's done. So, John, thank you very much. We do have a plaque only because we didn't know. I know you said effective 22nd, but we didn't know if things changed. So we do have a plaque to present to John. Thank you for your meritorious service to the Schertz-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District Board of Trustees. Continued success in all your endeavors. Presented on this day, August 21st, 2018. I'm too fat. Is that what you're saying? Thank you. Any further comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Oh, you voted no? Motion passes. All right, Dr. Gibson, reminded us that we will take up the process about how to replace John. I won't say replace, but find a replacement, for his place later in the meeting. President's welcome recognition of special guest. As part of the Church-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District Community Partnership, we would like to acknowledge our numerous key partners and collaborators who are active contributors in helping the district achieve its mission and goals. Tonight, we salute partners who helped to make the Church-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District a destination school district. Number one, from Guadalupe County, we welcome the Honorable Jim Wolverton, who serves as County Commissioner for Precinct 3. Commissioner Wolverton is also a proud graduate of Samuel Clemens High School. Guadalupe County is a strategic partner with Church-Cibolo Universal City, providing services to our school district that include tax appraisal, elections, and government support. Mr. Wolverton. Did you want to say anything, Mr. Wolverton? Please.
Dr. Gibson, Chairman, the board members, thank you so much. Guadalupe County is proud to be a partner with SCUCISD. The fact that you've allowed us to use the Steel area for our disaster training is fantastic, and you need to know if there's anything the county can ever do for you, all you have to do is give me a call and we'll take care of it. But once again, thank you for being a friend, and we'll continue on a great relationship.
Thank you, sir. What year did you graduate Clemens?
1969, sir.
Oh, great year.
A
Thank
very
you.
long
Proud graduate of a great class, 1969.
Yes.
It was a distinguished class, as I
Yes, it
recall.
was. I know one very fine woman that graduated with
I'm married to the most distinguished member of that
you.
class.
Certainly
by the way.
are, sir. And one of the meanest, too.
One of the meanest. You're right about that.
Thank you, sir. Tonight, we also welcome our district collaborators. Please welcome Mrs. Maggie Titterington, President of the Chamber, representing the cities of Church, Cibolo, and Selma. The Chamber serves as a community partner and advocate for better business, better community, and better connection to our target audience. Ms. Titterington, I have a paragraph, but you'll be able to explain it better than I will. So if you, she does so much. She's on the Community Advisory Committee also.
Maggie, what class were you in?
Yeah, all the ladies go, oh. Yeah. I'm a proud 1984 Buffalo, go
All right,
Buffs.
there you
Thank you, Jerry, very much. No, I don't know what your paragraph has, but I'm the chamber president for the 3 cities, Church, Cibolo, and Selma area, founding member of the CAC Community Advisory Committee, and I have just so enjoyed collaborating with the district, with Dr. Gibson, with the teachers, sitting in on some of the 2-day retreats that we have here, just planning, casting vision and missions. I just think it's very important as a graduate from this school district and an investor in the community, not only just in business, but in the growth of our students to become the next generation of businessmen and women. It's very important to be hands-on. It's very important to be a part of the whole processes, and so we continue to have interns from both high schools. We have a Steel senior as our DECA intern who's been absolutely awesome, Yasmin Said, and part of leadership core programs. But no, it's been my honor and my privilege, and I believe my duty as a citizen and a resident here, and I look forward to many, many more years of serving.
Do you have any guests with you?
Do I what?
Were those your guests?
Yes, actually, I would like to introduce my chair-elect for the chamber, Russell Hunter. He is also formerly with Caterpillar, who has been our naming sponsor for the past several years of the Golf Classic that benefits the DECA programs at Clemens and Steel, and he was at the forefront pushing for that, so he's been a great supporter of the district. And also I'd like to introduce my husband, Scott Titterington, who is not a Buffalo, didn't get the privilege of graduating from the school district, but is definitely my supporter and my collaborator in everything that I do here.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll go to the board recitation of district belief statements.
We believe all students have the capacity to learn and excel.
We believe a safe, secure, and supportive environment is paramount to learning. We believe living our core values of leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning.
We believe in engaging, interactive, authentic teaching creates empowered, inspired learners prepared for our changing world.
We believe technology is a relevant tool that enhances learning in and beyond the classroom.
We believe in a professional learning community that fosters collaboration for continuous improvement. We believe transparent, clear, and timely communication among all is critical to success.
We believe measures of success go beyond standardized testing, and we believe public education is defined by the local community with limited state involvement.
Next, we will have public comments. The Church-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District Board of Trustees is committed to continuous improvement. That's public feedback. Okay, there we go. That's the wrong one. I'm glad I didn't get further. All right. Board of Trustees will now hear public comments. In order to provide consistency and fairness to all individuals, public comments will be heard in accordance with Board Policy BED and procedures outlined in Administrative Regulation BED. Comments should be limited to topics such as policies, curriculum, and facilities. Any direct criticism of a specific employee will not be heard during public comments and should be considered separately as provided in board policy. In this context, individuals are cautioned to not identify any employee by name or by any combination of words or descriptions which could identify the employee to another individual. Public comments will be limited to individuals who signed up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting before the board meeting was called to order. Delegations of more than five persons shall appoint one person to present their views. An individual who signed up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting may not relinquish their time to another individual. No public comment shall exceed 5 minutes. To ensure compliance with time limitations, a yellow card will be held up by the board secretary at 4 minutes, and a red card will be held up at 5 minutes. Dr. Irene Petrisky. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like for my husband, he signed up for, to speak to the public. He's got rehearsal to get back to, go first.
Oh, he's going to go first. Okay, Dr. Petrisky, the other, Robert Petrisky.
Good evening, everyone. Board of Trustees, Dr. Gibson, thank you so much for allowing me to have a little bit of time. I am Robert Petrisky. This is the start of my 14th year as head band director at St. Nicholas High School, and my 24th year as an employee of this district, and my 31st year as a resident of our community. We have experienced great growth in the Clemens Band program. In the last 10 years, we have more than doubled our enrollment in the Samuel Clemens Band. As of today, our roster show 292 students in our program. That is band and color guard. And we're very, very proud of that. It's a wonderful thing. However, our space is very limited for storage and rehearsal. And I would appreciate and support you moving forward to the renovation of our Samuel Clemens Band Hall so we can better accommodate our students and our growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Hey, continue the good work. They've been doing good things over there. Thank you, sir. Dr. Irene Petrisky.
Good evening, Dr. Gibson, President Westbrook, school board members. I had signed up originally because in case my husband couldn't make it, he instructed me to give hugs and kisses to Mr. Pruski for what he's trying to do for the band hall renovations, and also support of Mr. Leip. They've been there, they saw the needs, and I almost ran over Mr. Pruski yesterday when he was on his way to check out constructions and meetings and doing his job. Since my husband was already able to do that, there is a need. I think I've sent some pictures of what the band hall looked like, and all the kids were not in the band hall at the time, and they were out into the hallway and so forth. So, I mean, I saw firsthand there were wall-to-wall kids and instruments. So thank you for your efforts in that, and we hope that you will approve that measure on the agenda so Mr. Pruski and his group can continue to work on that. The other thing, I'd like to thank Mr. Crow. I remember before you served, you were elected to the school board, I attended the city council meetings for Shirts, and I was so impressed with Mr. Crow when he made presentations where he successfully was awarded grants to buy essential equipment for first responders. That was very impressive. I mean, he did go above and beyond his first responder status, and we all know first responders, that's exactly what they do. But he did so much when he worked for Schertz PD. And so I was very happy when he was elected to the school board, and was very happy that he brought that same kind of dedication to our school district and insight, very important insight that was needed. It's always helped. Each one of you, you know, you have your skill set, your knowledge base. That's very important to the well-being of our students, our staff, and our community. So I wanted to thank you on that. Another thing, congratulations to the school district, the teachers, the staff, on the Texas Education Agency, the letter grade of B. Of course, I've looked over the formulas that they used, and it's amazing that you could read through the formulas and get through that. You should get an A just being able to get through figuring that out. Anyway, please consider that before you approve the budget on August 30th. Keep that in mind. You've always been supportive of the staff, and especially the teachers. And we'd appreciate if you continue that support. They work so hard. Yesterday, I know at the high school, my husband was so impressed with the first day, considering the construction issues that they're having to deal with, and he said it went very smoothly. So, and he was not the only one that said that. So, thank you, Officer Coreau. I always refer to you as Officer Coreau. And thank you, board. And please keep in mind when you adopt the budget August 30th to do the very best that you can do for a very deserving staff. Thank you.
Kim Drake.
Good evening, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, and members of the board. My name is Kim Drake, and I'm a 23-year resident of the SCUCISD community, and I'm also the proud parent of 3 students who have been part of the Band and Color Guard program over the last 7 years. I'm also an involved parent in the Band and Color Guard program, and I recognize that renovations are desperately needed and long overdue for our program that has rapidly grown since the initial building of the band hall. As a taxpayer, I'm concerned that the conceptual designs presented at the July board meeting will not fully meet the needs of the program, and I do not want to see that $4 million spent on improvements that do not truly benefit the program. I don't want to see the $4 million spent on improvements that do not truly meet the benefits of the program. As a longtime volunteer within the program and a functional user of its space, I see that the needs of the program, and I see them slightly differently than what some of our district employees and contracted architects may see. The plans displayed at last month's board meeting include the elimination of an upper deck, stairs, and 12 practice rooms within the band hall. The plans showed that the 12 practice rooms, which were costly to build, would be replaced by fewer practice rooms, which are not adequate for our growing program, and where increased numbers of students need space to practice their music. By eliminating the upper deck, you also decrease and eliminate usable space that students need to place their belongings, sit and eat their meals before games and competitions, and dress in their uniforms. Additionally, these plans do not include space for the color guard. At this time, there are 43 members of the Samuel Clemens Color Guard, which has doubled in size over the last 3 years, who have no space to securely store their belongings, eat their meals and dress before competitions, or store their equipment. Today, these 43 members are confined to a hallway near an exit door. Usable space for our color guard, who, by the way, placed second in the state winter guard competition last year, is a must. I am here tonight to request that you move forward, that while you move forward and approve the renovations and the additions to the Clemens Band Hall, that you also consider community input into the design so that we can ensure that the $4 million is spent the most effective and efficient way as possible to truly meet the needs of the Mighty Buffalo Band and Color Bark program for years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any correspondence?
Mr. President, I don't have any correspondence, but I would like to just mention to thank Dr. Gibson and his staff. I know there were a lot of people involved in the convocation this year. I think it was a really good day. Everybody enjoyed the drum cafe. And I knew it was 4 years ago that we'd had them before. I didn't realize it was tied in with our plan and long-range plan. Yeah, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm glad somebody remembered that. I knew that they'd been here like 4 years ago, but anyway. But I think it was a great day, and I appreciate that. As a board member, my thing is there are two really great occasions to be a board member and I think probably in any district. But for me, you have the convocation with the teachers at the beginning of the year, and then you have graduation with the students at the end of the year. And there's a lot that goes on in between, but we do a lot, and I know we don't meet everybody's needs, but those are two really great days for me, and I really cherish those days because you get to see a lot of hardworking staff members that you've known over the years, and amazing how many first-year educators we have, or first year in the district educators we have, and also amazing how many of those educators went through our school district. And then when you ask all of the educators to stand up in our district who went to school here, it's amazing, phenomenal. I know that happens other places, but I think it's pretty special. So anyway, thank you, Dr. Gibson and staff. Appreciate that. Appreciate the convocation this year. It's really good. Thank you.
I'm going to say we appreciate you saying that, and then I'll just use it as an opportunity to plug Shirts Bank provided a very, very, very generous donation to sponsor our convocation, and then our Education Foundation, whatever's left over, they say they pick it up at the end of every year. So that celebration, another part that's really cool about it is that we have good donation from community partners that are making sure that it happens.
I did send Mr. Richard a note at the bank to thank the bank, thank the Board of Trustees, and to thank the bank president as well for their donation.
There is a little bit correspondence. I didn't see it on today's agenda, so I'll just say it, and then I'll forward it to Dee Dee. The Texas Association of School Board is offering a stipend to attend the National School Board Association's Advocacy Institute, January 27th through 29th, 2019 in Washington, D.C. Local school boards may nominate a trustee and alternate for the stipend. The nominations process is quite simple. Consult with your board to select a nominee and alternate to attend the Advocacy Institute. Have your board's nominee and alternate fill out the form. Submit the nominations by Friday, September 14th. So I think we're up on a little bit of a deadline. I know it's not tonight. I'm just saying, I don't know how we're going to fit it in, if anybody. Did Amy go last year? No. I thought a year or two ago. Oh, you went 2 years ago? Somebody went before.
We can place it on the August 30th agenda.
Okay, I know we have some called board meetings coming up, so. Next, we will have trustee visibility and commitment within the district community and with other governmental entities. David?
Well, I guess if considering August, there wasn't much going on in July anyway, but August, of course, then I mentioned the convocation. Also have attended a Education Foundation meeting. We had a meeting last week and participated in a budget committee workshop as well.
Oops, didn't seem to work. I appreciate going to the convocation. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed seeing the Drum Club again. I always want Drum Cafe. See, I always get that messed up. Appreciate seeing them again. It's good to find out I actually do have some rhythm. I didn't think I had that much. I've always been told I couldn't carry a tune if I had to, but at least I have rhythm. So.
No, you don't.
Yeah. Okay. So at least I tried. But I appreciate the teachers that were there and the staff. They were off to a good start, and I really appreciate everybody being there and the staff really putting on a good show. And so I hope we all have a good year, and we'll see you at graduation. So have a great year. Thanks.
Mr. Perkins?
We do this every month, and I wait till the last minute to write them down. So. Hopefully I'll keep it long enough to put it in the system. We had a Northeast Partnership lunch the first week of August. That was pretty neat, meeting with the mayors of the local cities. And that was the same day we had the CIS, we had the team building, actually the board team building exercise that we did. The following week, I went to a CIS champions, Guadalupe County champions meet luncheon. We had 50 different people attend at Steele High School. I'm going to wander a little bit here because we got to see the before and after of a superintendent, because the superintendent at Seguin is a very young.
He's 16 years old.
He looks like he's 16, and Dr. Gibson standing next to him looked like he's about 50.
Yeah. 52.
But it was
the after in case.
It was kind of neat to watch what 22 years of superintendent will do to you.
I'm not going to argue with it.
That's right. I also attended convocation. That every year it's very neat, and I'm always amazed. There was a CIS Communities and Schools Board meeting this morning, and the chamber luncheon today also. And then I started. My niece plays volleyball for Incarnate Word, and they're playing against Clemens right now, and I got to go over and watch it start and watch the first 2 points, and then I had to walk across the heat and get back over here.
Being that I'm only 23, I feel that way standing next to Dr. Gibson sometimes too. So I really didn't have a whole lot this month, but I did want to share something which I thought was interesting. I took my daughter to college, which is a good thing and a bad thing depending on how you look at it. And she got I don't know what you call it, but a quad room. So there's 4 rooms and 4 bathrooms and a joint living room. And I guess they take an online survey and they try to match people like Match.com. People have similar interests and similar values and all that good stuff. And what I thought was interesting is when we got her there, I think she was able to pick one of the roommates because they kind of worked it together. So I get there and it's totally random. I mean, they assign you who your roommate's going to be. So we have the first room is a Steele graduate. The second room is a Steele graduate. The third room is a Steele graduate. And the fourth room is from Canada. But she wanted to be a Steele graduate. But I just thought it was very interesting that they took online surveys and they actually honestly had no idea that they were going to be roommates, anything, but I guess, when you graduate from a certain area, a certain community, you end up having the same type of values and the same, I guess, likes and everything. It was just very interesting because when we're meeting the parents, we're like, hey, I've seen you before, and I just thought it was interesting. So they can sit there. The girl from Canada is probably going to be out when, they start talking about sports and stuff because all she wanted to talk about was hockey, and our kids have no idea what hockey even is, but I just thought that was interesting that they ended up all 3 Steele people in one room, so very interesting.
Gary?
Yeah, I'll just say again, congratulations on convocations, or both of them, and I can recall a time when convocation consisted of the entire staff meeting in the Clemens cafeteria. You remember that, people? And I think we gave out a couple breakfast tacos. We were cheap back then, so I think you only got 1 apiece. I was 16. Something like that. And Dr. Steele would tell a couple jokes, and that was about it. I mean, quite honestly, and now it seems like it's a kind of a Broadway production somewhat, and everybody's leaving out of there happy and positive. And was that? I said we had to censor the okay. So times have definitely changed. We were definitely a different district, and it's. I mean, again, the wonderful thing is just everybody's happy and excited and glad to be back for a new school year.
convocation, I attended convocation, and also the new teacher hire. How many new teachers did we have? Right around 100. A good bunch. They didn't laugh at my jokes, but that's all right. No, they did. Some of them did. Also, I had the opportunity to go to Go Public, and they're doing great things. Go Public is getting bigger. Matter of fact, they mentioned that maybe even Seguin was thinking about joining Go Public. They've had bus wraps downtown San Antonio to, sort of be an advocate for public schools, so they're doing good things, and I think they have some new sponsorships. Next, we'll have new business.
Yeah, and Mr. Westbrook, just to start new business, I might point out that item 3A, 3 and 4 really go together. So Paige and JD, we can kind of just segue those two in together. And then that 6, 7, and 8 all need to be posted separately, but Paige, feel free to just roll from one to the other since they're all three related.
Dr. Edwards.
All right, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, members of the board. Wanted to share a little bit about, you've heard a lot about our district scorecard and some of those things, and we wanted to share some information with you and give you kind of a background of the scorecard and how that impacts all of our priorities and our priority reports that are to come forward to you in the next few months. And to kind of take a step back, this is some of the same information that we've used as we've worked through these processes, so it's not something that we make up just for the board presentation, but we do want to share with you kind of how these connect, how these align, and if you will, how these integrate with one another. So tonight's presentation is to kind of go over the district scorecard. It's based upon what we've shared earlier, the mission, vision, values. The interesting thing about that is, and what we share with folks, is that we've kind of revamped our mission statement, our vision, but our values didn't change, and that's one thing that we share throughout a lot of the leadership opportunities we've had. That's the consistent. Your values really don't change, and they're your foundation. So those didn't change. Obviously, the belief statements that were read by the board at the beginning of the meeting drive our plans and drive our actions as part of that process. So just wanted to review those. And this is one we've really started talking about. It's not new, but it's story number 4 as it relates to PLC. And it's really that commitment and that belief that we believe all kids can learn and learn at high levels. It's our job to create that environment and to support our students in mastering that challenging academic material and content. And we're prepared to work collaboratively with colleagues. It really combines a lot of the belief statements that we went over. But this is story number 4 for us. And so if you hear us referencing that at schools and different places, that's what that is. It's our collective commitment to ensure our students learn at the highest levels, and we work collaboratively to do that. And these slides you've seen before, but the beliefs are what is our foundation. It's the biggest part of that iceberg model that we use. That develops our structures, our patterns, and then what eventually is our goals in the event that we keep talking about. And again, another illustration of that. The majority of the work happens below the surface, and what you see are the outcomes and those things above the surface. Our belief as a PLC, and that the 4 questions that we ask. And then that really moves us into the connection between our strategic plan that we worked over the last year, probably 8 to 12 months on, that leading to strategic thinking. And that's a big focus for us as well, as we really have to think through things and take that time to not just act, but to really process through that and plan our work and work our plan. And part of that comes with strategic action. And again, this is a lot of the information that we went through with Leadership Academy as we set the foundation for this year and started working on some of these concepts. So really this year is about the transition from the old strategic plan, the 14 to 18 strategic plan, and building on the past, but also preparing for the future in the 18 to 22 strategic plan. Some of the things you'll see throughout this short presentation are linkages between what we've worked on the last 4 years in that plan and how we want to continue to take that, and what we often talk about is continuous improvement and continue to grow. And this quote by C.S. Lewis, you can't go back and change the beginning. You have to start where you are and change the ending, and that's what we're focusing on. And then that piece we talked about thinking. We started a few years ago talking about change is inevitable. Growth is optional was the first one. Then we changed that and grew into that. Growth is intentional, but for that to happen, thinking is critical. Also, we've talked a lot about aligning our subsystems. We've been working with this on campuses to where we truly get to that integration, and we use kind of the model of drafting, or the geese and how they draft off one another, and sometimes the lead goose drops back and another goose takes its place, but the momentum keeps going and it actually carries the whole flock through that processes, and that's that integration, that's that collaboration. And that leads us to, so this talk about the integration and aligned processes. We started with the strategic plan. We moved into the district improvement plan, and we've been working on that collaboratively as a team one, the big overall district plan that drives our actions for this next year. And then really boiling that down to the district scorecard, and we've talked a lot about that, and that's what we'll get into with our priorities. From that really drives our campus improvement plan, and we've spent a lot of time working together, both the operations side as well as the instructional side, of really developing what's going to drive our campus, and then the campus and department scorecards, how we're really going to measure that without pulling out a huge document online or hard copy resource. What is the placemat that we can use to drive those conversations, and then that even leading us down into some of the grade and subject level scorecards, which are all based still on our SMART goals that we've been talking about for years as well, and that leads us to that strategic goal and that day-to-day work processes that lead us to those successes. So scorecards, what are they? We've heard a lot of talk about it. We referred to those in the past as annual action plans, but we've moved into and grown into the scorecards. Basically, it measures what you treasure, and it brings our vision to reality. It's plan your work and work your plan as a part of that process. It's a document that aligns our goals, our actions, our progress monitoring, our key priorities, both in the department as well as organization-wide. It's really that placemat that helps us align those. It helps us develop our goals. Again, we talked about that SMART goal recess, and part of that is a similar tool, a common language. One of the things that we've brought in with some of our trainers is the conversation, do you all talk like that around here? Well, we should. We should have that common vocabulary and that common framework, and that's what our scorecard helps us do across all schools and all departments. We talk a lot about defined autonomy. Every campus is going to be a little bit different, and their needs are going to be a little bit different, but we have that defined autonomy. We have a common goal and a common purpose, and there's some differentiation based upon what those are. It helps us with our measure. It identifies our annual results, both from a district standpoint and from a campus standpoint, because what we do know is our district is made up of the parts of the whole. Each campus contributes to the overall district processes and district successes. So the progress monitoring measures, the action steps, and the key priorities for continuous organizational improvement are a part of that scorecard process. And then it also helps us communicate those goals to internal and external stakeholders from campus and district as part of that process. We talk about a lot about alignment for action, and that's what another way to look at that is it helps us align our district mission and vision to then take us into our four-year strategic plan. And we want everybody to see this connectedness, especially our campuses. And then it aligns with our 4 priorities that we've mentioned, and you'll hear a little bit more later in this presentation about how we're going to share some of those things out as it revolves around our priorities. Our improvement plans, both from the district standpoint, the district scorecard, and how they also align with those priorities, and then as well as the annual campus plan and campus scorecard specific to each potential targets and actions in those 4 priorities. So although we do have 4 priorities and some 4-year goals for the district, what we say is we want those campus goals to feed into that and align with those processes. That's how we're going to get to where we want to go or where we want to be. Again, part of this is in the priorities. We focus on key annual results that are based on our 4-year plan as it aligns with those results. So if we have a reading goal that we want to increase every year, these yearly scorecards help us drill down to here's where we are, here's where we want to be in a year. Part of that SMART goal process is that it's attainable, that it's realistic and it's attainable in that. And so we use this annually to adjust for that continuous improvement, and then as well as our strategic actions. Those may be the same from year to year. They may be a little bit different because of our continuous improvement philosophy and our growth in that, and then also our key annual progress monitoring measures. If we've changed a little bit on our results, we need to change a little bit on how we're monitoring those measures. And this is just an example of the priority 1 that we'll come back and talk a little bit more about next month. But the boxes you see out to the side of that is where we'll score that in the green, yellow, and red, as we've done in the past, to indicate, are we making progress on that? Has it not started yet? Or do we feel like that we've accomplished a good majority of that goal? And so from the campus standpoint, where do we fit in? Where do they fit in? And how does a team contribute in that? And that's the alignment from the 4th grade math classroom to the district overall goal of reading. And I did say math to reading because those can and should align in a part of that process. The timeline is, as you know, we've developed our district scorecard. That has been completed. We've been working with our campuses on completing their scorecards, or at least a rough draft, by August 31st. Our departments are also a part of that scorecard process and how we contribute to the whole, and we're looking at September 17th, and then some of the opportunities to validate actions and monitor some of those. Those are adjustable, but we're looking at November and March as a part of that process. So again, it really comes back down to the 4 priorities, and the way we'll report that out to the board is that in September we'll report out a little bit on priority 1. We may not have a lot of specific results, but we can talk about our actions and whether we see ourselves moving in that direction. Priority 2 will be in October, priority 3 in November, priority 4 in December, and then we'll start that process again in the second semester. What this also aligns with is our Team 1 meetings, because again, this is all about making those connections and that connectedness. We don't want to see, we're doing this just to be doing it, but it's a part of our Team 1 process, which consists of all of our campuses, as well as all of our departments working together on those goals, and it integrates also with the superintendent appraisal processes that we'll bring back to the board. So you see that integration along the way. So with that being said, that's an overview of our scorecard process and actually what that scorecard means to us. It's a real driver for us. We've had a lot of positive about not only the district scorecard and the campus principals, as well as the district representatives working together to develop that scorecard, but also how that aligns. We used to call it cascades, but really how that aligns with what we're doing on our campuses in accomplishing our district goals. So some key words in that are integration, alignment, collaboration, and cooperation as we look at our scorecard process on up and how all of those fit into our overall strategic plan, 4-year strategic plan, 18 to 22. So we wanted to share a little bit of that information with you tonight and kind of lay the foundation for the processes in the next few months and how we report those priorities back out to you. Any questions?
I don't have a question, just appreciate all the work that goes into doing something like this, because there is a considerable amount of work, and I think it's a good step and should lead us in a good direction. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pivito.
It was a pretty good presentation.
Thank you.
I'll start to say great. It really was a pretty good presentation. Can you go all the way back to the, it was like the second or third slide. One more. The one with a bunch of the one with several arrows. That one. I just need to take a look at campus improvement plan. So these will all be aligned, and that's how we're gonna grade subject scorecard. Okay. Campus and department scorecards, how often will those come out?
We'll look at those as part of our quarterly continuous improvement visits, but it's ongoing as we look at that, because those are based on our strategic actions as well in our measures. So we really want these scorecards to be something that are fluid. They may change a little bit, we may tweak them, but they're not set in stone. They need to adjust and be flexible with us as we achieve or as we learn different things. And that's one of the beauties about this. Is the adjustments that can be made based on where we are and what our needs are. And I appreciate what Mr. Pivito said, because there's been a lot of learning for us as well. And we believe that we need to exemplify that as a learning organization, that continuous improvement, that continuous growth.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Westbrook, I'll put a plug in for rounding this fall. we're gonna tweak it a little bit, and it's going to align to conversations around the scorecard. So when we're rounding, we'll be at department meetings and at campus meetings, looking at their campus and department scorecards and having conversations about it. So Selma, or Priscilla rather, is going to send a list soon for rounding dates. We're about to get them set. So feel free to, if you want to go kind of see that in action on the front line, that'd be a good way to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Pruski and Mr. Mosley.
Good evening. Tonight is the monthly construction update for the board regarding, and we'll start off on Bond 2016. As a reminder on those projects of Clemens High School, Rose Garden replacement, HVAC at Watts Wilder Jordan, and technology. Transportation has been finished and is closed out. So moving right into it, some exciting things happening across the street. Samuel Clemens High School, we're at that 75% complete at this point in time. The ongoing activities with the campus as it is there's a lot of things. I'm going to go forward here. So as we know, the new admin, new classroom wing, the H wing here, along with O in the front, the new front addition, the new gym, they're actually in there this evening, and then working on access into that P. We had a slight hiccup there, so we're working on getting in there tomorrow and utilizing that space. So that should be going forward. And then with the new auditorium coming in December. Also going on is the internal demolition of the old auditorium, which is pretty much for all intents and purposes gone, and the auxiliary gym, which was interior, and for the most part that is gone as well at this time. So school started Monday, just letting y'all know. We had a few people there. Things were going through there. It is a construction, and it is always a good reminder to come back after summer when there's very few people around, and then you have a couple thousand extras walking around there. So we're getting used to each other again. The parking, we have, just as a reminder, some construction parking in this back parking lot, and then along this east side of the stadium. There's also the construction parking here in the front, and then over out by Schertz Parkway and Buffalo Drive. Overflow parking being at the tennis courts as well, being shared by the project that's happening here at Malish for the HVAC there. So some updated pictures here. You can see the front drive put in on the visitor loop here, the small parking lot in front of the classroom addition here. This pad is the ROTC drill pad. And then you can see the front addition with the 2-story classrooms, the new the front office, and then the support spaces off here to the right. That's going forward. So this is the look of some of the interiors. Right in the middle, that's the walk as you walk into Clemens now. On the floor, you have the SC, and then you can see the teacher mailbox spaces over here, which they're still working in this area. To the right of these doors, these coiling doors, that's where the office staff is. This is still being worked on area, and then you can kind of see that there's a conference table. So moving forward there, you can still see the site work. This picture, well, I'll wait till that comes up. So going forward, some interiors as well, the concrete floors, some interior classroom pictures there, and here's the auxiliary gym on the left. And then trying to orient myself here. This looks like that's the gym as well from the exterior. And then this is the event center entrance that I was alluding to earlier that I spoke about. So having a few hiccups, so to speak, but we will be in there tomorrow. So this will have, downstairs will be the PE and some of the athletic programs. And then upstairs is the choir and dance and cheer component. And then off to the right here is the continuation for the auditorium, which will come in December of this year. So inside that, when you walk in, this is what's there now. So the stairs, the grand stair, and then this is the second floor entrance, the auditorium to the right, and then the gym on the left-hand side here. The corridor along the gyms, you can see the display cases here. These will be the display cases. This is where we brought in the old gym floor. The parts that were salvageable we used for the backing. So this brings in the historical perspective of the campus. We'll be getting some small plaques to put in there to commemorate this is from the original floor from the original building. Then you can also see the corridor on the other side of the P building. Moving along, work going on upstairs. You might have heard, maybe not, but full disclosure and full transparency. We were working on the roof today, and there was some work going on right above an air intake. So some fumes and some smoke got in there, and that kind of set off a little 9-minute fire drill. So, just keeping it real. Less than 10 minutes. So, we made our way through there. Going on inside in the auditorium, work continues, working through there, moving forward. This is an interior shot of the renovated admin area now, which will be used for the nurse's office, teacher areas, and ALE. And then in the ROTC component, if you've been in the steel wing addition there, what we did for the ROTC, this is kind of a mirror of the same, where we have the officers' offices as well as the cadet officers' offices, and then some workspaces in there. What I was mentioning earlier, this used to be the auditorium. That in the middle there used to be the gym. So it's getting ready for some work to be going on inside there. There's a better picture of what used to be the gym. So this is in the upstairs, the new punch out into, this will give you an idea. This used to be some classrooms. We now created a corridor that goes into the upstairs version here on the right. So this area is a satellite area of office spaces, and then the students have this to assist with the traffic flow going through the building. Some other views of the spaces, and then up to Rose Garden. So, okay, JD, all yours. Thank you.
Good evening. So the first thing I'll draw your attention to is that 100% complete down there at the bottom. So we opened up the first day, kind of like Clemens did too. We were out there, lots of little bitty shiny faces out there and smiling. We had a treat. We had a bunch of Clemens football players there opening doors with us. I thought that was really a nice touch. I'm not sure who set that up, but that was really nice too. So a nice opening on Monday for Rose Garden. Substantial completion was achieved on July 5th. Only ongoing stuff, we have some punch list items that are going on, just some minor things here and there, as well as the HVAC commissioning being completed currently. This rendering from the beginning, there's our site plan. So here's an aerial view of the campus now. Looks good. Again, this is another aerial view, but facing the front of the building. So you can see the entryway right here in the middle. There's our parent drop-off loop on this side. This is actually playground over here on the left. This is our staff parking lot on the end over here. This is our gym. Our buses are using this as their drop-off area and pickup area. This is our discovery zone. So cafeteria and our monument sign out front here. I'm not sure if you've been in the building and seen this, but this back here in the back is, I think, is a really nice touch. And you can't see this on your screen more than likely, but this background on this graphic is the old Rose Garden building. You can see the words, but you probably can't make it out. But there's actually a picture in that graphic of the old Rose Garden building. I think there's a really nice piece for the cafeteria. Here's our entryway. Some classroom on the left and the library on your right. Questions on Rose Garden before we push into HVAC? Okay, so our HVAC project, our Watts, Wilder, and Jordan, this was a 2-summer project. You can see we're at 95% complete on this project also. Coming straight up to the end, we do have air in all the classrooms. We replace a lot of air conditioning units, so we do have a few things here that we, got to kind of tidy up a little bit, but overall, 95% complete. You can see that project completion is August 2018, so these three are coming to an end. This was our phasing plan for those 3 campuses. Taking a look at some of the refrigerant, the insulation jacketing on the copper refrigerant piping outside. Not nearly as fun pictures as Clemens and Rose Garden, but that's what we were doing. We got some access ladders over here. You can see up in the mezzanine some of the new ductwork and some of the new units there. Any questions on HVAC at those 3 campuses?
JD, you said 95%. Is that on schedule like we expected?
Yes, sir. We've got air in all the classrooms. Most of that is just touch-ups. We've got some commissioning, kind of like as Rose Garden. The commissioning is really just going through all of the units and making sure that what was designed was actually installed and making sure all the settings are current and that kind of stuff. So really it's minor work. The air conditioning's working. It's just getting controls and making everything balance and everything. So technology, budget's $5 million on that. We're looking at 30% complete on our technology piece. Phone replacements beginning in September. The network equipment is on order. And the panels, phase 1 is complete on our panel replacement. And then planning for phase 2 begins in September. Any questions on technology? Okay. So our 2013 is the next piece. This is our savings, our 2013 bond savings projects. That's HVAC replacement at Pascal and Malish East. So the bond savings, $33.9 million for the project. Pascal Elementary is at 68% complete, and then Malish is at about 28% complete. Again, kind of like our other 3 projects, the Pascal, the first half of Pascal, a little bit more than half was scheduled for this summer. Again, everything is up and running, kind of at the same point as our other projects. We're really looking at controls and balancing and stuff at that campus as well. Malish, 28% complete, is really just in the demolition phases and setting some new units up on top. So
do you need us to create a logo for Malish East? Or some colors or something?
Yeah, something.
We can do that.
So again, at Pascal, testing and balancing going on at Pascal, and then really this demolition going on at Malish. So looking ahead, we will come back to Pascal next summer to finish it up, and then our Malish is scheduled for completion in November. Here's our phasing plan for Pascal and for the east wing of Malish. Just kind of taking a look inside. This is demolition, lighting, and HVAC in the Malish building. And that was it. Any questions on those 2 projects? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll have maintenance and operations fund balance by Paige Maloney. I guess as discussed before, 3 and 4 will go together. Roofing access control painting by J.D. Mosley.
Yes, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, members of the board. Tonight, we're bringing to you as a discussion item only for the forecast of the projected 17-18 maintenance and operations fund balance. And basically what we wanted to provide is to show in the forecast where the final projections will be within the assigned, committed, the unassigned 90 days of operating costs and excess deficit unassigned. And so if you'll go to the attachment on that item, what we have is a history of our fund balance from, for the past 7 years. And if you'll go to the 3rd row where it says total ending fund balance,
The $40,422,908 is what we are projecting right now as of the end of closing the books in July 31st, what we will end up in our general operating fund balance. If you go back to the first column, we do have committed funds. Those are our assigned and committed funds, and they are footnoted, and that includes our required inventory that we must keep in our purchasing, $100,000 in that's in a healthcare fund that we will have to spend on healthcare. That was as a result of transferring from Humana over to United Healthcare, some savings that went back to the district. The assigned $5.4 million is from many, many years ago when the money was assigned for any capital project emergency you might have. The board many, many years ago assigned that, so it would stay committed. And then, of course, the $750,000 that we committed to the self-funded program earlier in the spring, this 17-18 school year. So that is what's committed. We're projecting what is going to be the ending fund balance unassigned is the 33.9, and then the total. The amount added to the fund balance, we are taking a hit on, or projecting to take a hit on our fund balance this year, but if you will remember, through the amendment of the EPP, that was $5.4 million. So that was added to the budget. So there was almost $2 million projected right now in savings even after that EPP project. But we reflect that, and that is a negative percentage from the prior year. We have run the numbers and our accruals for the next school year and have forecasted out that 90 days operating costs would increase by $2 million to the $31 million. And so that leaves us with an estimated, and again, we have the August cleanup where, encumbrances go back in and things like that. And so we expect this to be a little more, but the excess deficit unassigned general fund balance going to end right around the $3 million mark. So do we want to go into the
$3 million. That's after all said and done, the difference between the 90 days of operating costs and 31 million and the 40 million. We're only going to have roughly 3 million to sort of.
We do have this. If you'll look in the first row, the 6.4 million that is assigned, and we do have that $5.4 million that is assigned, not for a particular project, but for the board assigned that money many years ago. And I did go back. This was even before Peggy's time. At that time, it was to round out to probably 20 million at the time to round out to get to that number, because that it seems like an odd number that you would put aside, but it has continuously carried over from year to year going into 15 plus years.
So do we know why it was assigned? Was it prior to the rules related to 90 days and the district was trying to create its own internal?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. There are districts do this, and it's just a safety valve on top of a safety valve. It's a safety to the safety.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of times where it was, good luck getting 90 days. Try to have 30 at least, but because there were years where they had to make loans to make their first paycheck.
Right.
And it's just one of those things when they finally got some.
And we covered this in the budget committee the other night. The first indicators moving into 2021, that the recommendation or the indicator is that you have to have 75 days.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. Is there?
Yeah, because districts are having a hard time.
Is that a TEA?
The 90 days is in our local policy.
Yeah, but the 75, where is that coming from?
The 75, they've put it as the indicator of 75. That'll be in the first ratings that you have to have that to get that indicator.
Right. Okay.
Because many of the districts are having a difficult time adhering to these I don't want to say old, but local policies of carrying the 90 days, 3 months.
Okay. That's something to consider.
Definitely.
All right, Paige, does the 5.4 million assigned that was set aside, how long ago has it been set aside?
Over 15 years ago.
Oh, okay, over 15 years. So those from 11 to 12 all the way through 17, 18, that reflects, that's a true reflection. Let's go 11, 12. That's 7,540,000. That's not, that doesn't have the 5 million included in it, right? So
If you would go up to the top row on the 11-12 school year, that 5.4 would be included in that. There were, and I don't have it committed to memory, but there were probably other committed items. I know that there were other committed items at the time. If you go to the 13-14, I would assume that the committed items at that time were for the Wilder addition and the pool. So things like that. There are other committed items that go into that category. The 5.4 has been a part of that through time. And I could get to you the other committed items as we go through the years. But just like right now, you do have to have an inventory. Right now we have 750,000 for the self-funded that's sitting there right now that we have not pulled over into its own fund.
I think what he's asking, the
Oh.
11-12, the 5 is not included in any of the other numbers down below
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Is that correct?
Oh, no.
Okay.
So that's a standalone number
That's a standalone.
coming all the way across, because it can't be counted in any of these other buckets.
No.
Okay,
That's
exactly.
what you were asking.
Exactly, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks,
It goes
Dr.
across the first column.
And
It's set aside, so it can't be included in any of the other.
No, sir. Yes, no, it cannot. Because
what-
it's assigned.
So what I was trying to get at is, and I don't know, the people out in the audience don't see this, so 11-12, it was 7.5 million, 12-13, 16.2 million, 13-14, 7.8 million, 14-15, 8.2 million, 15-16, 10.2 million, 16-17, 8.7, and then 17 estimate is 2.9 million. So there's a dwindling, more or less a steady downward of the excess deficit unassigned general fund balance over the years for the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would say that that is corresponding with less growth and a continued reduction under the funding formula outlined in 2010, where we were getting less and less and less each year from the state.
Right.
Thank you. It was just, to me, it's sort of alarming. I mean, that's sort of a significant drop, but I do understand why, Dr. Gibson, the decreased enrollment, the decreased state funding, but, you know, thank you.
I'll just go down
Mr.
memory
Mosley.
lane for 2 seconds. Had we not, in 2010 or 11 rather, we did not declare financial exigency, but we took some very dramatic steps when that new formula came out right after my arrival to offset. So had we not taken those steps, I think this would have it would have nosedived in a shorter amount of time than 8 years. I mean, that's
Yes.
one way to look at it.
But the fact that you bring it to 5.4 million, which was a safety valve to a safety valve, do you mention it now because we're almost at the first safety valve and now we have to start looking at the second safety valve?
That's essentially, and you know, you can also see it's going, you know, you increase your, if you're keeping that 90 days operating cost too, that is increasing on average of about 2 million each year as well. So you're hitting that, and then, you know, we have not had the growth that we thought that we would have, and then we've done the EPP for the past couple of years at the same time. In the last school year, we didn't take, you know, we in the 16-17, we did the EPP as well, and we ended up getting some revenue right at the end that helped us almost balance that out. We got some prior year state aid, and that came in August. We didn't expect to do as well at the very end, and you know, something could happen next week too, and we could get there's still some impact aid that hasn't come in, you know, things like that. So
yeah, and I don't think and I think the answer to your question is yes. It's mentioned because it's there and it has always been there. I think Ms. Maloney doesn't want to be presumptuous because we're working through a budget committee right now, But yet, at the same time, this is really presented as the lay of the land, you know, as we start this analysis. So it's not meant to try to draw conclusions tonight, it's just to help everybody understand
Yes.
where we stand. That's really what the purpose of tonight is. Now, at
And-
the same time, the next item, we're gonna
Right.
have a recommendation of over $1 million, and we'll give some rationale for that, and we'll just have a discussion around that.
And this item doesn't come back as a single item. It comes back as the, on final amended budget where we're going to fall. So we'll have those numbers. So it'll be an attachment to the final amended budget.
Thank you. Mr.
I've got one question, sorry.
Yes, sir.
When's the 75-day operating kick in?
The new first rules.
The 2021 school year.
So 3 years out.
So that would be for the 2021 school year, and then the rating wouldn't be until the
2 years out.
21-22, yes.
So
The 21-22, looking at that.
is
Yes,
there any
sir.
is there any rationale coming down as to why they're, except for some districts having issue getting to the 90 days, or is there anything else that's
Well, you
driving
know,
that?
it's really interesting. The Service Center does have the Business Managers Co-op, and Ms. Monchagaba and I are signed up for that. And then on top of that, they are going to have 4 quarterly meetings to go over this new criteria, so districts, so we can advise, you know, our districts on how we want to move forward with that, because there are some major changes on the first ratings for 2021.
Okay, so this is not being driven by TEA, this is really just being driven by the amount of money that's being saved or amount of money that's being set aside? That'd be a true statement?
Basically on where we've felt comfortable as a district in a very conservative manner, yes.
But the state organizations, TASA and others, asked for consideration for that to be lowered. So, and
Yes.
I think they just said, okay.
That's
I
what I
mean,
was trying to figure out,
yeah.
what the driving force was
Yeah.
at, that
I
who kinda
think
said
there
it
was a kind of a
okay.
push to lower that
Oh, okay.
threshold, because it's just getting leaner and leaner, and it's tough to carry that
But they're
much.
still gonna wait 2 years to put that in the force, so
Right.
we still have to carry 90 days for at least the next 2 years.
Well, that's a local policy.
Yes,
The
sir.
90 days is, right?
Yes, sir.
So what would the I think what he's asking, are we through with the old first, or will we get a rating a year from now under the old formula?
We'll get a rating a year from now on the old formula.
Okay.
And one of the things that we're doing on the budget committee is looking at, because many of the new first ratings, some of the behaviors and things that we do this school year, because you're looking at 3-year trends, will affect that rating. So that's why we're having to be so diligent in studying this. But on the budget committee, one thing that we're doing is we're putting those first indicators, 19 of them, I believe, we're splitting those up and trying to present those at the onset. And we just talked about the fund balance, and we talked about the 75 days. So hopefully we'll be able to work with the Service Center through recommendation of TASA, TASB, and then we'll be able to make recommendations to you guys.
So Paige, what are the current rules about fund balance and first?
I would have to, I'd need to look at it.
But it's not 90 days.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it.
That's our local policy.
That's our local policy.
Which has always kept us comfortably over whatever that rule is.
Absolutely.
So something for the budget committee might be to look at exactly what that, for the next 2 years, what are the rules?
Right.
I was thinking first only had 60 days requirement, 2 months, not 3 months.
I think it's something like, I think it's, I don't know. I need to
We'll
look at it.
pull it and
We'll
put
need to
it
pull
on
it and
the
look at
board
it. I've been focused on this other one so much because
Because I
it's
know we've
new.
always been way over what's been required, that we've always carried a large fund balance, mostly
Right.
because just for emergencies or anything else that's coming along, so,
Well, and it's nice for your ratings when you're trying to go out for a bond as well.
right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mosley?
Okay, so kind of as Dr. Gibson did mention, these items do kind of go together a little bit. So the item before you is a discussion item on the expenditure projection plan. This is for roofing, access control, and painting across the district. So senior leaders developed our 10-year EPP projection plan in correlation to our 10-year facility development plan. As a reminder, this is a multi-departmental plan that describes maintenance and operation needs that are beyond our current budget. The total for the 18-19 EPP is $7.7 million. At this time, the district asked the board to consider only allocating funds for the roofing, access control, and painting in a total of $1.65 million. These projects would be completed by July 31st of 2019, so next summer. Administrative considerations, again, is that the projected cost would be 1.65. The funding would be provided through a 2018 budget amendment from the district fund balance. Additional background information on these three items. Our roofing assessment, we've talked a little bit about roofing before. We do have a 10-year plan on roofing assessment to replace, repair, and maintain this valuable district asset. Our 18-19 funds will be distributed across the district to complete needed replacements and repairs. Impacts will be Watts, Clemens, Weiderstein, Jordan, Wilder, Allison, Steele, and Green Valley. As dollars come back on these projects, there's plenty more to do as well. The second item is the access control. You've seen this come to the board several times as well. We have completed access control at all but 3 of our campuses. The 18-19 upgrades will be targeted to include Schertz, Weiderstein, and Sipple. And then the last piece there is the painting piece, and this is completing painting of our aging campuses, interior and exterior, is the way that we can provide equitable facilities across the district. 18-19 funds would be allocated to Wilder, 22 years old, and Jordan, 20 years old. Important to understand that when we're talking about painting these 2 campuses, these campuses are 90% wallpaper on these campuses, so it is actually removing wallpaper, prepping the walls in all of these buildings, and then painting the walls. And so it's not just a simple go in and paint piece for us as well. And then you can see the amounts that would be needed for those projects.
Any questions?
Yeah, are these projects that could have been paid for out of the 2 cents we would have gotten from the TRE?
Those projects were part of the TRE, yes, sir.
That we didn't allow the community to vote for? You know, it's very important that the roofing is taken care of. I've seen ceiling tiles fall in classrooms because of poor roof maintenance. Not recently, thank goodness, because I think we're trying to stay on top of that. But a solid roof can control a whole lot of issues, as you well know. So
yes, sir.
I think that's very important. So anyway, I think it's certainly needed.
Page 21 of the packet was meant to illustrate of the however many projects that were listed out total, 20 maybe. These are the only 3 that are coming forward, and they will need to come from fund balance.
Any other comments? So what is you're talking, so on the previous document, there was a balance of 2.6 million left? 2.9 million, close to 3 million. So then that essentially will be cut in half if we approve next meeting, 1.6 million?
Yeah, the 2.9 is an estimate on any.
It's all an estimate,
yes.
I get it.
But roughly, yes, it'll
Yes.
be a little more than half.
And to Mr. Finley's question on the first readings now, sorry, I had to, there is nothing on fund balance. It's all about cash on hand. And if you have the cash on hand to be able to make your payments on your current liabilities for 60 days, and then another one excluding construction too. But yes, to what Mr. Westbrook said.
So since this is a discussion item, we have 90 days is our district policy.
Yes, sir.
All right, and so it can go as low as 60, so between 60 and 90, so we can sort of decrease it to 75 and have a little bit more money, more access to money? That's an option?
We absolutely could, and it's never been one of the indicators before. They're putting it as an indicator now, and the recommendation from TASA, TASB, and TEA, the people who are, the folks who are putting the new system together, feel comfortable with the 75 days.
Reduce operating funds, or go to the 5.4 million. What other options do we have? Or cut this budget, cut part of this, cut a part of the roofing access or painting control. And you're saying Wilder is at 22 years old and Jordan is at 20.
Yes,
You're
sir.
They haven't been painted in 20 years, or?
No, so these buildings were predominantly wallpaper when they were built. It's a way to save some money when you build buildings initially. Unfortunately, you can't maintain wallpaper, so I've got lots of pictures that if you'd be interested to see them. But once they're stained, they're stained. You really not a lot you can do with them. So we've got staples holding up wallpaper across both of these campuses.
We did have a mold issue there because of the stone, the brick outside was not treated.
Yes, sir, and it's known the wallpaper glue.
It was an issue, and
yes, sir.
You got to remember Wilder was built for $4.2 or $3 million.
Yes, sir.
Served a purpose, but it was not definitely not state of the art.
So JD, on page 18, the document states that the 1819 EPP was originally 7.7. So what was the 1920?
So the 1920 number is actually 7.5 million as well.
Okay, so if you take 7.7, then you would reduce 1.6, and then so where would the rest of that go?
It's going to go to the 1920.
Which
yes,
would
sir.
make it?
We're at $13 million for next year. Yes, sir.
In projected cost of kind of keeping up with the business.
Correct.
Big ticket items keeping up with the business. Technology, turf, asphalt, roofs, etc.
Yes, sir.
Well, in reality, we have access to $30 million. It's just not a good idea to use it. I mean, those are funds. It's called a fund balance for a reason. It's rainy day fund, for a reason. And the state doesn't want to use theirs for any reason at all. Sometimes you get forced to do things. But yeah, you don't want to. It's not a good idea to do it.
I might just, there's a couple more documents in your board book that follow up with these, and it just kind of shows the prioritization that we've gone through, as an administrative team, and looking at all the things that we had on that $7.7 million for the 18-19 school year in EPP. And so, we've initially done quite a bit of work on prioritization, and these are the three items that have kind of come out of that prioritization.
So page 23, 24, and 25.
Yes, sir.
Where did we get the funding for the band renovation, band room renovation?
Those are bond dollars.
That's the band hall is bond.
Bond, okay.
Yes, sir. 2016.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seems like the Budget Committee has some hard work ahead of it, some decision-making one way or the other. And
Mr. President, I've got one question, maybe two. Trying to go through and make sense of some of this. You've got developed a 10-year expenditure plan in correlation to the 10-year facility, and you've got to talk about $7.7 million in 18-19, and we're going to spend 1.6. But you go down in the next one, and you've got 3.9 million, which is a total amount that you have in the 4 million planning tool. So we were going to have what, $7 million? We were anticipating coming out of the fund balance anyway, irregardless of anything that was going to happen. So if you go back up and you look at $2 million that we have sitting right now, we were going to be at 3.7 over and above what we already had. Even if we did the TRE and put that money in there, we were still looking at a $700,000 deficit no matter what we did.
Correct. That, Mr. Finley, is why on page 23, 24, and 25 were done, because we knew that even with the $6 there wasn't enough to get all the projects done.
That's correct. That's kind of where that prioritization started looking at and how we could kind of fund those projects. I know that the board's asked that question before, and and if the funding wasn't there, then this is a plan. This is what we see as a needed plan for things that need to happen in our district. And so, funding or not, this is the plan, so.
And this is just for the current, coming year, correct?
Yes,
For
sir.
18-19?
Yes, sir.
Just for grins, what was it in 1920?
So the 1920 is about 7.5 as well, sir.
And part of what the Budget Committee, they have a tab in there, and part of their quarterly analysis is the EPP. And since we're kind of back to that subject, I want to be realistic. You said a lot of work ahead of them on the Budget Committee. We may not be able to get some of that completed by March, and that's okay. And even when we make the presentation for the budget parameter memo in March, I would recommend that committee keep going and working on EPP. That would be my recommendation, because that, there's 14 million potentially, or 13 or so that we're looking at. And I don't think under any scenario that's going to be afforded. Okay, so we've got to recalibrate. So decisions have to be made about what gets pushed off. And so that's the work ahead.
Right, because I'm sitting looking at the numbers, and we have $14 million talking about over 2 years, and the money, even with the 2 cents, we took that into consideration, and with the increase in the fund balance going to be required based on our budget going up, and if the state continues to do what they're doing, we wouldn't have had that money no matter what. It wouldn't have been there.
Well, we would have been
could've wished
$4.5 million closer.
What I'm saying is that we wouldn't have been there anyway. We would have been short no matter what we did.
Right. I would rather be short 700,000 than 5.2 million, I guess is what I'm saying.
Again, it looks like no matter what we, I'm going to say this again, no matter what we did, we were going to be short. So I'm not sure that that the EPP was realistic at a start point to try to go down that road and start pushing that much money in a situation with an unknown future. Whether we did the 2 cents or anything else, we're already short. There's no other way to describe it. We're already short, and we haven't even started the process yet.
Right. So the methodology for the EPP is when we buy an air conditioning unit, there's one of them that's going on top of the building, Malish East, as we like to refer to ourselves, that has a lifespan of X amount of years. Then, we can add a few more years to that because we're good at keeping them going. And then there's a deadline somewhere, wherever that year is. That's what's in the EPP.
Correct.
It's just keeping up with what has already been built and what is already just laid out. There's not like new stuff in there. It's just keeping the machine going.
Right. So an example for the roof, you look at that roof, and when those warranties are going to be up, and a lot of them are 20 years, and so those roof replacements and repairs, they land on the EPP when that industry says this is, your warranty's up, your roof has met its lifespan. That's the year it goes on to the EPP, and that's kind of how those numbers come in. So that goes back to our painting plan. If you look at industry standards there, you'll find out that there's about a 15-year lifespan on paint in a building. So we're significantly past that, but you've got to get a plan of some kind of how can we do this down the road, and try to spread it out as much as you can.
So on one of the roofs you mentioned a while ago, what was the years?
So some of the roofs that we're working on, they'll be Marion Dulford, old buildings, So there's one of the roofs that we'll be working on in several of our campuses. Dobie, Clemens will be one as well.
So where are they at? Life expectancy?
They're past. They're well past.
Like how far?
Some of these are probably 10, 15 years past their lifespan already.
In reality, that means that we have buckets on beams up above the
Yes, sir. We certainly do.
rain.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Hey, Wayne, I'm sorry, JD, excuse me, just ask you a question, and it's not trying to undermine you, but if they're 15 years past, has these been brought up before, or have we just been trying to extend it as long as we can each time, or?
I think it's two pieces. We've tried to do the best we can to extend it, but it's been deferred because the money has not been there to do these projects in the past. So,
Going into the EPP, the first reality was that our requirements will exceed our financial resources year after year. We have more requirements, at the campuses and the departments, and that's the reality. So a lot has been deferred.
Thank you. I appreciate all the effort. It's just that I was in the grocery store the other day, and somebody told me, he lives in his district, but he was at another HEB, and he was like, he wants us to cut more and more, and it almost seems like we've already deferred and cut a significant amount. I don't know how much more we can cut, how much longer we can defer this maintenance. And like Mr. Rivera said, our needs, our needs outweigh, whatever income we're bringing in. So that's some hard choices. But thank you very much. Next, we have discussion for the TASB policy. Paige Maloney.
Paige, this is the first time policies ever look good, so enjoy.
I was just getting ready to say, woohoo. Here we go. No, thank you, Mr. President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, and members of the board. This group, the cabinet, was able back in June to participate in a 2-day policy review of all 7, I'm sorry, is it 7? Yes, 7 sections of policy, and you can see those down, section A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And we worked with TASB and our consultant, and she was able to come back with some recommendations based on the meeting that we had. And then we've been able, or we are in the process of reviewing all of those, and we decided to split up in bringing them to you. And if you look down at the very bottom of the agenda item, sections A and B, we're bringing to you tonight as August discussion and September action. D will be September discussion, October action, and E and F, October discussion and November action. And these are all as a result of that policy review, and then our work to decide as a group if we're going to bring those forward for changes. Through the review, we did not have any revisions in C, section C, nor section G. So tonight we bring 5 policies from A and B. And what I would say is, number 1, the A policy is an addition for a District of Innovation, since we did not have that distinction prior to this school year. 2, 3, and 5 are revisions, but minor ones. And 4 is a replace, but there's no content change. It's just a reorder of, or a reorganization of the policy to make it flow better. And so we're bringing those 5 policies as discussion tonight based on the TASB policy review, and we'll bring them back under consent at the September meeting.
Any discussion?
BDAA. We've been down.
Which one?
BDAA.
BDA.
I remember having this discussion 4 or 5 years ago, and we went down the road of eliminating the assistant superintendent then.
The secretary.
I'm sorry, assistant secretary, I'm sorry.
Fortunately, we don't have any assistant superintendents right now that would have had a heart, yeah.
We went down that road then, and I remember having a discussion about it at that time, and we, as a board, decided to keep the assistant secretary. There have been times when the secretary was not available, and the assistant secretary has had to step up to the plate and act in the secretary's stead. That's, for me, that's one that I would strike. I don't know about the rest of the board, but there have been times when having an assistant secretary either in the meeting where the secretary was not available, or having that position so the secretary could bring the assistant secretary on board, so there's a future day the assistant secretary could become the secretary and hit the ground running. That's one that, in my opinion, I would strike that change, but we'll see what the rest.
Strike
the strike, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have 2 strikes.
We do not, Mr. Finley and Mr. Westbrook, the staff doesn't have strong feelings about these. And one of the things we charged TASB with was to consider all the X policies, and if you notice, that would take it X to A1. That's the reason they made the proposal. But however, whatever the board's rationale is the board's rationale. And if the board chooses to keep that, that's a simple thing to do. we just put no on that one, right? Because that was the only change to that one. So instead of checking yes, we would just say no.
Yes, sir.
And we would, thanks for bringing it up, Mr. Finley, because Mr. Westbrook, if we would like to know this month, because it would be easier to put it on consent next month if that discussion was finalized.
Gary?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd go along with Ed on this one, and I think one of the most important things that we do that is keeping that certified agenda in our closed meetings. And quite honestly, most of us have no idea if we keep it or not. It's just something that you are trusting the secretary to do, and I think Dee Dee probably keeps track of that as well. But I think just, you know, for some reason if the secretary doesn't show up, and it's just one of those things that kind of no one really gives much thought to, I can see how that would pass by without, you know, us keeping something like that when we should. So I don't have a problem keeping an assistant secretary position, I mean, not just for a title per se, but I think it is something that you may need from time to time.
So we'll modify, unless there's an argument against the two comments. So BD, on page 29, BDAA local, we will check no. We're telling them no, we don't. That's, thanks for the recommendation, but we'll stick with what we have. Okay.
And when we bring it back for consent, that whole, it'll be out of there. It'll
There
just
will be no BDAA.
just the 4.
Right? Yep.
Okay, thank you.
About BQB, local planning and decision-making process, page 38. Can you just tell me the reasoning behind striking some of the language and coming up with at least one district professional representative shall be nominated and elected by district level what's the history behind that whole paragraph?
Yeah, we got too specific with our language, basically, and so they just broadened it out, if you'll see, to this one district level. We were using some of our own internal, you know, SAS and executive cabinet and that terminology, and they just recommended us using broader terminology to describe basically the same thing. So instead of saying SAS member, at least one district level professional representative. We kind of get to the same place, it's just that it's just broader language, basically.
Shall be nominated and elected by non-teaching staff assigned to the campus. That's instead of all professional, just.
Right.
Basically, they get to elect one of their own.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other discussion? So we're going to make that one amendment. We're going to keep our present policy as is. That's how you read it?
On
That's how we-
BDAA, yes.
BDAA.
Yep.
And next month for,
Yes, we'll just take it off.
annual review of Church-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District investment policy, Paige Maloney.
Yes, thank you, President Westbrook, members of the board, Dr. Gibson. As Dr. Gibson said previously, 6, 7, and 8 do go together. The first one is an annual review of our investment policy. All 3 of these items are annual items. I have included the investment policy, which is CDA legal and CDA local. There are no changes at this time. The entire policy is attached for your review, and also a sample order is attached that we'll have to sign and adopt when we approve this policy. The 3 items are all included within the investment policy. The next 2 items, the one about the investment officers, we do have to designate district investment officers each year, and all of those officers do have to attend a training once a year. We're already signed up for that, 3 of us, Ms. Monchagimba, Ms. Ramos, and myself. Another part of the investment policy is item 8, which is the adoption of qualified brokers and pools. This also is an annual item because of the investment policy. The brokers and pools are listed in that discussion item. At the present time, the district's investments are in local government investment pools. So it is a lot to digest, but it is an annual item. There are no changes to the policy at this time, and we have no changes in the brokers and pools at this time either.
Are we getting any returns these days?
We're doing very well on investments right now. We have not been doing we have been forecasting revenue for the past 3 to 4 years around $250,000 return, and we think that we may close out close to $1 million.
Oh, good. So a little
in
bit
revenue.
of bouncing back.
And even to the thought of looking possibly in some paper CDs, just to
Right.
generate a little bit more.
Which in this training is all showing you all everything that's eligible for a governmental
Yes,
organization.
and all of those brokers and pools offer both types.
Okay.
We've just been very conservative in our investments.
So 6, 7, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I got one question. How often do we go out for an RFP on our brokers?
We have to go out for an RFP on our banking. They just extended that to every 3 years. On our brokers, Mr. Rivera, you want to help me with that? I don't think we.
No, if we did put out a solicitation for brokers, we could look at their qualifications and select the most qualified. Typically, if their performance has been poor, then you want to start looking elsewhere. I would just defer to the finance office and when they want to go out for that.
So I take it these 5 have been good over the years, and there's really no reason that, in y'all's opinion, that we need to go look at elsewhere?
Well, not from Ms. Maloney's predecessor didn't want to go out at that time, and as soon as we're ready, if you want to go out, just if they're doing badly, but I haven't heard anything bad. All I've heard is good, so.
Yeah, and we went
call.
out for our banking, I believe, last school year.
I was just thinking that it might not be a bad idea every 3 to 5 years, just do it for this also. If we're gonna do it for banking, then why not do it for this? If somebody else is out there that can do a better job, let's find them. If not, then at least we'll know for sure that we've got the best deal going. I think that'd be probably a prudent thing to do. So we're doing it for banking, might as well do it for here. And if we're talking about $250,000 or $1 million per year, if we can get $1.5 million a year, why not? If we can't, then that's great too, at least we'll know.
Okay.
So I was just thinking,
I think
can-
to do it at the same time probably is
Yeah.
a good time to do it, because then everybody knows exactly what we're asking for. Our depository, our brokers,
Right.
and our pools.
and I know it's extra work on y'all, but like I said, if we can get a better deal, if we can't, then at least we'll know. So,
We can put it on that cycle with our depository.
That'd be great, yeah.
Mhm.
Just an idea. Thank you.
So 6, 7, and 8 ran together, correct?
Yes.
So we're going to do 2018, 2019 request for maximum class size exception waiver. Linda Cannon.
Yes, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, and members of the board. In September, we will be coming back to the board for a need for a maximum class size waiver exception request to TEA for the 18-19 school year. This is due to the fact that some of our elementary classrooms will be over that 22-to-1 ratio. And we now have to submit a waiver based on every classroom that's over that 22-to-1 ratio. So we would be bringing that back to the board in September, and would be based on a September 14th enrollment at that time.
Ms. Cannon and Ms. Maloney, I noticed the other night at the board budget committee under our cost savings tab last year that helped us, I think, to the tune of about $800,000. Is my recollection. Does that sound about right?
I believe that's right. Over the past 5 years, it was close to $4 million total.
So as far as rationale, it's $1 million a year cost avoidance, basically.
Let me ask this. I mean, it says, somewhat here that we anticipate some class sizes may be over. Okay, so some could be 1% or some could be 99%. So, I mean, where are we in the sense of, are we having more classes this year that are over capacity than normal or in previous years, or what's the trend?
With only being 2 days in, we're still trying to balance classes across the district as far as if we have an overage or underage of students per grade level. But the way that the class size waiver has to be submitted now is every classroom at every campus at K to 4 that are over that 22-to-1. So you're going to list it by, say, at Schertz Elementary, you have 5 teachers, 4 of those could be over. But looking at enrollment this morning, there was several over the 22-to-1. And they're, like I said, we're still balancing, because there will be some that come off of that list based on us trying to balance numbers.
So again, when does this have to be submitted?
We-
September 14th?
We do it after, what we do is we look at the enrollment prior to the September board meeting, and then we ask for approval at the September board meeting, and that's where we have final numbers of what we need for waivers.
Okay, and it's something we pretty much ask for every year, right? I mean, just-
Yes, we do. And then we're required to send a letter home to the parents in those classrooms as well.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there used to be, you know, when the class size, maximum class size legislation came out, there was a 22-to-1 in every class, but you were allowed to have 24 in another class. And is that still part of the legislation?
No, it's not. It used to be that you could have an overall average at a grade level, as long as it was at that grade level 22-to-1, then you didn't have to submit a request. But they've changed that, and now they want you to submit a waiver for every single classroom. So one classroom at a grade level may have 21 kids, and another may end up with 23 students, and you have to submit a waiver for that 23rd student.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's
Okay.
every single classroom that has to be submitted.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just as an idea, would this be a situation where, say we do the waiver, say you have 3 classrooms out of 5 at Weiderstein, and then October comes along, we get another student, and that class goes over 22. Will we have to resubmit that waiver that next month, do the same thing, because you don't have a waiver at that point in time for that one that just went over?
They don't tell you to go back in and resubmit the waiver. They ask you to monitor that throughout the year, which we do. When the weekly enrollment sheets come out that I believe y'all get in your board updates, I monitor that weekly to see where we are with numbers. And if we're starting to look at classrooms that are getting, more students over that 24-to-1, then we're going to really take a look at what we can do to help out that campus.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
No other discussion? Thank you, Linda. Discussion, conveyance of easement to GVEC at Samuel Clemens High School. Matt Rivera and Wayne Pruski.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the board, and Dr. Gibson. We've talked about Clemens High School quite a bit, and in order to accommodate the planned growth on that site and site development, the transformer that provides primary power to those portables on that part of the campus in the front by L Bell Road needs to be moved, and about approximately 400 linear feet. And in order for them to do that, they're going to need an easement in order to support that move. So the purpose of this is to allow a conveyance of the easement to GVEC in order to support the line extension for those portable buildings.
Any discussion? None.
There currently is a transformer there now, but it'll conflict with the planned development there. There's going to be a parking lot there, so those two won't match. So we need to move the transformer out of the way.
So it needs to be done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera.
One question is would this cost be absorbed into the bond situation? Bond money, so that's where the money would come from, the 14,000.
Right, we saw this coming in design. If you remember, it's that parking lot that's going along L Bell where the portables are now.
Right.
We're extending through there. Well, this line is there, and it's better for it to go underground than overhead, so we don't have to worry about trucks and whatnot going through there. Gotcha. So it's all together.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you.
Solicitation for, is that all the discussion? That's it? Solicitation for Samuel Clemens High School kitchen renovations. J.D. Mosley and Maggie Cornejo.
Good evening, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, members of the board. So much like the rest of Clemens campus, our kitchen has outgrown its ability to serve meals, and so we're looking at expanding that kitchen as well. I do have a couple of pictures I want to show you. And so what we're looking at is a project completion in August of 2019. So this coming, I know we're in summer of 18, but we're looking at what are we going to finish for summer of 19. So this project would be finished in the summer of 19. Funding is coming from the Child Nutrition Funds, and our architect on this project is O'Connell Robertson. So this is just a floor plan of Clemens. So you can see the kitchen at the very back top of your screen there. That's the impacted area. This is existing conditions. The yellow area is the current staff dining room, which is tabbed for the first phase of this renovation. The area in blue on the right side of your screen is the existing area where the cooler, freezer, and pantry are currently located. Renovations for this. This is what the renovated floor plan would actually look like. So what you're looking at is we're moving the freezer and cooler from what was the blue area into the yellow area, and greatly expanding the storage capacity for those areas. The second phase of this project would be the blue area, and that would be to demo the freezer and cooler and then expand the pantry for the kitchen as well. I think these numbers really take a look at what we've been doing there. So existing cooler area, 88 square feet. Renovation, getting it up to 174 square feet. I won't read all those numbers for you because I think the bottom one really says it all. Is we're looking at a 74% increase in storage capacity with our freezer, cooler, and then pantry for that campus. So construction schedule, again, we'd be looking at coming back to the board for award in October, starting phase 1 for the new cooler and freezer in the staff dining area in November, finishing that project up in February. And then the new pantry would start day students are out in 19. Maggie, if you had anything to add?
No, other than in comparison to other freezers and coolers in the district, we're way lower than even our newest elementary. So the Clemens High School is really needed. We've been storing some of their products in our warehouse, and we're kind of outgrowing that as well. We're in our warehouse, what used to be office space is now freezer and cooler space. So we keep adding and we keep needing, and just because the district is growing. So just in comparison, it's smaller than our newest elementary school right now, so badly needed. We haven't had an expansion, ever. I believe that was it was renovated in '97, and it's been exactly the same way.
How would we fund this?
Yeah.
The funding is coming from our child nutrition funds.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And what would you think any ballpark figure on what that would be?
We're estimating between $350,000 and $400,000.
Okay. Was this under consideration for the 2016 bond issue at all?
No, sir. At that time, during the design and everything, that was not part of the design work included in that project scope.
And, okay, is the staff dining room just not being used? I know it's too small probably for the staff that's currently there, so, I mean, to get really good use out of it, so.
There's very few participants that were utilizing the area, and what I did is I invited JD and Wayne and the principal and whoever wanted to come along for a tour of the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we got through the kitchen, which is a very narrow, certainly not ADA, when our oven doors are open, you can't even walk behind there. So it's very tight, even in the prep area. By the time we got to the staff dining area, the principal said, Maggie, I can see that you need space. If you want to utilize this space, go ahead. So she was very agreeable to, our staff was using that space as a break area. There was probably a couple of custodians that were using it,
and maybe a handful of teachers, maybe coaches that would go have lunch there. But in comparison to the need that we had, and we're really landlocked as far as where the kitchen is situated. We have on the other side is the band hall, on the other side is the outdoor area. So she actually suggested that if we needed that space, and we took her up on the offer.
Yeah, I remember, you know, when the renovations were done, I don't, would have been the same, I guess, same bond issue that Wilder and Jordan and Watts were built with. You know, if you look at where the auditorium was, the dining room or the cafeteria was to the right of that, and now those are classrooms, and they opened up that courtyard and then added the cafeteria. It was really, I mean, it was great at the time, but obviously 22 years later, it's certainly something that needs to be looked at. I just, you know, it's always better to get these things in a bond issue, but, you know, I can understand if it's something that was not considered. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I think the only other thing was, on the last sentence was bidding documents will be ready to issue on or about August 22nd. So what are you looking for tonight? I mean, because we're supposed to vote on it next month, so you're just looking for general consensus that we're going to move forward so you can issue the bidding documents tomorrow?
Yes, sir. We typically do the discussion, just letting the board know that the bidding document.
Okay.
It'll still come back before the board for your review, final review and approval. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next, agenda items requiring board, I think that's it.
Yeah, I'll have to have some lights in order to.
Agenda items requiring board
Thank you.
action, there we go. Are routinely brought 1 month for discussion, next month brought back for action. This item allows trustees an opportunity to consider which discussion items in this month's agenda may be eligible for board action under the consent agenda of a future meeting. At this point in time, we have, Dr. Gibson, you.
Yeah, on page 72, and the projected fund balance, M&O fund balance, that was just an informational item, right?
That was just an information item
Okay,
only.
so the EPP, I sensed that there would need to be another discussion and not placed on consent.
No, that's gonna have to be voted on. That's not gonna be consent.
Okay, that was my sense.
No.
And then TASB policy, yes, consent. Y'all just stop me if this doesn't sound right.
Well, you're gonna make the necessary changes according to.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
as reflected on the
in the meeting.
BDAA will be out.
Correct.
We'll pull it out. Then the investment policy, consent.
Yes.
The public investment officer pool,
Yes.
consent. Adoption qualified brokers and pools, consent. Then I had a question mark on class size waiver because we won't have the final numbers until then.
Well, why don't we pull that one, because Amy will be here next month. She might have some questions about that one.
Yeah, we actually didn't present numbers tonight. We just presented the concept, so I think that's prudent to do so. And then GVC, yes. Consent, and then kitchen renovation.
I think we need to have that in the open.
Which one?
I think the last one,
the kitchen, okay.
Yeah. I think, you know, once we have the bids and everything in, we give us an opportunity to ask better
Okay.
questions, maybe.
So that is 3 EPP, class size waiver, and kitchen renovation.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I
so
think it's
I'm
okay to
sorry,
go ahead
Dr.
and go with.
Gibson. On the kitchen, so we had initially planned for the kitchen for coming back from awarding contract in October, so we could actually do another discussion item for September. Is that what we want to look at?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna go ahead and go out for the bid?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that's fine, and that will give us some more information, and we can.
Sure.
You know, I think it's certainly a worthwhile project. I just think we need to.
So we would give the numbers in September for consideration of consent in October, is what we're saying.
We won't have bids until, until the October meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So action item in October. It's actually not an action item in September is what I just heard.
Correct. We won't
Okay.
have bids back until for the October, until
All right,
we're
that's
ready
fine.
for the October. Yes,
That'll
sir.
work. Okay, thank you.
No, I would assume since we're bringing the numbers, we'll just have it as a straight action item, not a consent agenda. Dee Dee, did you catch? Okay, hold that. Okay.
You got it? We have a list of consent items for approval. Dr. Gibson?
Yes, we do.
Mr. President, I would
Yeah.
ask that item D be pulled.
Item D is approval of Samuel Clemens High School Band Hall renovation conceptual design.
Yes, sir.
That's going to be pulled. Does any other trustee want any other A through M pulled out of the
Mr.
consent
President, I
items?
move that the board approve the consent agenda items with the exception of item D, dealing with the Samuel Clemens band renovation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Who's got the high school band hall renovation conceptual design? Let me see. 102, page 102. Mr. Pruski.
Well, Mr. Pivot, do you want to just ask your question?
Yeah, you know, we had the discussion about this last month, and I still had some question about it. What was the project dollar amount? Do you
For-
know? What,
For Clemens or for this piece right here, sir?
for this piece right here?
We're looking at $4 million.
Okay. Now, what was the discussion related to, I know there were some things about moving some stairways up to the
Yes, sir.
second level. And
Yes, sir. So
can you kind of go over that again, please?
Not a problem. So conceptually, it was the concept of going around and addressing the various curriculum side of the campus, and the band area was one area that was not being touched in the current scope of the project. So in realizing that we could have potential savings in the 16 account for this project, and going forward, learning of some concerns and some needs for the band hall, the concept of what we're looking for is trying to address the modernization of the band hall, spatial requirements for the band hall, and then utilizing the space in a more efficient manner. So in doing so, there's some, on this page, this is the first floor, you'll see in here that there's some stairwells along the north and east side, and these stairwells project out about 5 to 6 feet. And that's some valuable square footage for the band to be in there for practicing and rehearsal. So part of the plan of what we're moving forward, or looking to move forward with, is to eliminate those stairwells, to open up that band hall 1 area, this area in pink, and allow us to increase the square footage downstairs. And in looking at that, now upstairs, the aforementioned music practice rooms, bringing those down. Now, not all of them will, and I have a comparable table to show you with some data there, but we will be able to bring some of those down and not leave those up there. One of the concerns here is that if we go into this area and those are left there, we're talking elevator that will go in there. It's kind of like the old, you know, moving forward, which way do we want to go in there? So as a reminder, you know, this will centralize the area, keeping them close. And then this is the conceptual plan worked up for this area. And as you can see here, the stairwells go away and we open this area up. Some of these blue areas now are the practice rooms that come down, and you'll have band hall 1, band hall 2, and then here in the orchestra, there's also the practice rooms along this east wall. The blow up here on the right-hand side here, the enlarged area, is kind of the main cause of concern here is on the storage of these uniforms, instruments, and various other storage requirements for the program. So this was the data chart that I wanted to, Mr. Leip provided actually, And on the middle column there, that's the recommended square footage from our architectural firm. And then on the right-hand side, the current square footage of Clemens. And you can see going down, you have the recommendation of 4. The current for the band hall is about 3,600. For band hall 2, recommended at 2,000. It's close. But where you look at is on the practice rooms, the recommended rooms, we're at 16, and I mean current at 16, and the recommendation is taken down to 9. So that's where the conversation is bringing those down.
So where'd that recommendation come from for the 9?
That is, go ahead, Mike.
That came from our architects, and this is not anything that's in law or anything, but this is just kind of the standard for a 6A high school. They said this is kind of what they use as a starting point in Northside ISD, where they do a lot of work and things such as that. I thought this was very telling because when we first started talking about this, we went over and started looking at that facility and walking through it with the band directors and talking about the needs. And when the architects brought us this number, it really kind of just verified what we had already seen visually. The band hall and the orchestra rooms are basically a pretty good size. They're pretty close. Where we're severely lacking is storage.
Yeah.
And because we're lacking in storage, then we stuff ends up just sitting out in the band hall. And then, so now you have less usable square footage in the band hall because you've just got stuff in there.
So, was this ever part of the consideration for the 2016 bond? I'm asking that question because I asked it about the cafeteria.
Preliminarily, it was not, due to the fact that we were concerned about budget.
Okay.
And when we were going forth with the overall plan for the Clemens renovation, I don't know if you recall, but there was some concern on my side about the budget and what we were going to run into in taking on the task so big. And we got hit with some civil slowdowns, if you recall, the parking lot that took forever. The gas line issue, other utilities in the ground there. So it took us a while to kind of get going in there. And then now we're seeing, okay, we can breathe a little bit and we have some availability here.
Yeah.
At that time during design, Mr. Pivito, we were pretty nervous.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. Is Ms. Sosa, Mr. Lipe, Mr. Patrisky, have they signed off on this thing? The concept?
I think it's safe, yes.
Yeah, I would just add this, the concept of what we really need is storage. That's kind of where we are right now.
Okay.
There's nothing specifically been drawn. I know someone mentioned earlier about color guard storage. Certainly, nothing says color guard on there right now, but that's certainly something in the design that we will be working on in details. Really, the concept just got us to this point where we need storage, and this chunk right here is where we could possibly put it. Now, how that's designed, that's what we're working on now. We even actually had the band directors physically measure, well, okay, the students probably did it, but physically measured all the percussion instruments that sit out.
Yeah.
And we gave that to the architects, along with number of color guard members and things such as that, for them to continue working to refine these drawings to make sure we do as best we can to meet the needs of the program.
What was the current or the former room or facility used by the dance team, was that part of the 97 bond also, or was that, because I know the band hall, or the 95 or 96 bond, I can't remember anyway, several schools were built, but I think the band hall was part of that project, and as well as the cafeteria. Was the dance room part of that, or was that a later bond? Because I know it had been renovated. Actually, I don't even know if they had one, but it had been renovated at some point in time in the last 20 years. So, do you recall, or does anybody know?
I don't. The dance room that is now gone was formerly the band hall. This is what I'm told.
Right.
Obviously,
so that must have been part of the 97 bond issue.
It was,
then,
and that went away with the auditorium.
Right. I understand. I'm just because.
That's right.
You know,
I would suspect 96 is.
Is that the only reason why the dance hall or room was taken away, because the auditorium was taken away too?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
In the current
Okay.
program here?
Yeah.
Yes, when we blew that whole, well, when we demoed for like.
Yeah, so you had to build a new dance
Right.
facility.
That was, the dance was gonna be, dance and cheer were being displaced.
Right.
And then moving out the choir to open up for the orchestra in the current existing facility.
Okay. I mean, I'm asking these questions because I just want to get a sense of, you know, if this was an issue, if it's been an issue, and again, should be placed on a bond issue. I mean, I know a bond issue we had a few years ago, we took $3 million away from Clemens, or $7 million or something like that, and because, well, we don't need to get in why, but anyway, so yourself and Mr. Petrisky and Ms. Sosa have looked at this, and they're okay with the concept as it sits right here.
Yes, and I had a conversation with all three, actually, Clemens band directors as late
Okay.
as Friday afternoon,
Yeah.
talking about the concept so far, knowing that we have a lot of details still left to work out, and yes, they're pleased with the direction that
So
we're heading.
what can we do for the flag team then, for the drill team or whatever they're called? I'm sorry, I don't know the nomenclature there.
The color guard?
Color guard, yes, I'm
It's
sorry.
storage is, again, the concern. There is no currently there's no dedicated storage. So in this design, we need to find some place to store their equipment and things.
Okay.
Excuse me. And as Mr. Lipe alluded to earlier, with the concept of what we're trying to address, the design, we're nowhere in, we haven't fully gone into the design process of this.
Right.
This is
No, I
more of a
understand
taking
that. I know it's.
well, how we can make some pieces
Sure.
work here and, you know, looking at it and if it's even feasible. So we wanted to make sure we can get a feasibility of doing this before we even bring it to you. And
Right.
right now, we feel very comfortable that it's there.
Okay, go back to the slide you had that had the, you know, like we had, yes, that one there. So the recommended square footage, where are we going to be if this is done, that for the band hall 1? Where are we going to be? It says currently we're at 3637, and it's 4,000. So where are we going to be? Are we going to be close to that 4,000 or?
Right now, I can say I can answer that when we get further into the design
Okay.
side.
All right.
I can't fully give you a number right now, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. I appreciate all the answers. Thank you.
Yeah, let me follow up. I think Mr. Pivotal asked this twice, and you know, there's nothing worse than when something happens like this, and then the end users, whether it's the students or the band directors or the parents, then say, well, nobody ever asked us, you know, kind of a situation. So I just want to kind of clarify. It's one thing to have the architects in the room and upper-level administrators and whatnot, but are we getting feedback and/or two-way communication with, I mean, the folks that are actually going to be using the facilities at the end of the day? I just want to make sure. I mean, are we getting feedback from them? I know we can't do everything these folks want, I guess, but just are we taking their thoughts into consideration?
The process that we followed is through the channels allowed on the campus side. So if there's a group going through the campus, there's the directors, there's the administrators, there's the fine arts director, so to speak, and then to the design team. Those are the channels of communication there. To your point, if there's some feedback that needs to happen, those avenues do exist, yes.
I don't.
No, there's a difference. There's a difference between avenues exist and
Yeah.
what he's asking.
So let me cut to the chase.
Okay.
Have you guys sat down with the band parents and/or
No, sir.
the
No, sir.
and asked, what do y'all think about this?
Well, Wayne, let me back up.
I mean-
This wasn't even a project. Feedback is why it is now a project.
Okay.
There was an expressed need for space.
Right.
This wasn't even a project
Right.
90 days ago.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's what I guess I'm just trying to say, that I hope we're receiving or soliciting feedback from various groups that are ultimately going to be using the facility, as opposed to the higher up saying, hey, here's the facility that you're going to use. I mean, I just want to make sure that's part of the process, and then we'll ultimately do what's best. But yeah, I appreciate the fact that we've been talking about this topic, but just for whatever reason, there seemed to be a concern with one or more parents showing up tonight thinking that they're not really even a part of this.
Was this a request by Mr. Petrisky?
No, sir.
Okay.
So, I mean, who,
This was something that was left off of the original design when we first sat down at the Clemens
Okay.
part.
All right.
And we
All right.
worked all the way around, and it was like, you know what, let's work on curriculum
So you
standards
still had it
first
in the back of your mind
Yes,
that
sir.
it's a possibility of doing
sir.
this, and
to come back,
you,
and I
you
believe.
brought it forward to Mr. Patrisky, and you talked to Mr. Life about it, and Ms. Sosa,
Yes, sir.
and that was what was the dealing with the space. Was that what he wanted to do, or is that what, or storage and that sort of thing? Is that what
Yes,
he
sir.
wanted?
Yes, sir, to complete the whole piece there, rather than come back to a bond in the
Right.
next whatever
Yeah.
year saying, hey, we didn't complete that, we
Well,
need to
if-
do it now.
Again, if you have savings, you really need to use it for something, and you have to use it for that project, so I understand all that.
yeah, and then tonight's just the schematic design. So in other words, we're not doing the final design until
No.
what? It's gonna be back in November and December?
Mr. Edmond, tonight is just conceptual
Right.
and getting a blessing from the board to continue on with the design team to.
So there'll
start
still be more
schematic.
discussions, obviously. I mean, we're not
Yes.
inking this thing in stone at this point. I mean, this
Yes,
is, okay, yeah, good.
Yeah, and I just, you know, I wanted to ask these questions before we get too far down the road, so everybody already knows where, you know, where
understand.
we're sitting on here, and, you know, of course, there has been an issue raised with the, I'm sorry, color guard, yes, I'm sorry. I'm old school, I don't know what they call these things anymore. So anyway, thank you, I'm rambling here.
Let me just add too, since we're talking about the facility here, congratulations. I mean, actually, if we have that many more kids participating in the program, I mean, that's a fantastic thing. So I don't want that to just go unmentioned. Now, obviously, we gotta figure out a way to pay for facilities that are enlarged to house those kids, but congratulations on the fact that we do have a lot more students participating.
This 4 million is the result of the 3.9 million savings that you alluded to earlier, the bond savings, or what am I getting? This was how much was this? Oh, this was 350,000, you said?
No, sir, what we're thinking is approximately $4 million.
Yeah, 4 million, okay.
What's on the concept right now. As we start going through the design pieces, you'll start getting tighter and tighter with square footage dollars, and we'll have a better understanding there. The money that's available is through the actual Clemens project, the allocation from the
Okay.
bond itself. So there's potentially some realized savings there, and as we got further along with the project now, we realize there is gonna be some savings. We'd like to propose moving forward with those savings towards this project.
Okay, I got you. And your design team is behind you, that's Marmok and AGCM, or who?
AGCM is here. I don't see, Marmon Mock is not here tonight.
Okay.
This is AGCM, working on it. Nick Tuttle, and by the way, Madi Zapata did the Rose Garden project, so just to let y'all know, I failed to recognize her earlier, but she brought it in from ground to finish, so sorry. Nick Tuttle and Austin Anderson are on the Clemens team, and then Ryan Roseborough is project manager for this whole area of Texas, I believe. So.
We'll clap for them later.
Later. 2020.
Marty needs a steak. I saw her the other day. She was tired. She was like,
Where we're at right now basically is step 2 of probably a 10-step process. That'd be correct? We're just basically trying to say, okay, here's what we think we're going to do, whether or not we really can do this or not. So we're just really trying to get an idea and saying this is a overall conceptual idea, but we haven't even put the key in the car yet. We haven't even driven this really by anybody to see if it's actually even doable. We think it is, but we're not 100% sure. So that's what's going to happen over the next 2 or 3 months to say, okay, what exactly can we do? Are the dollars there? And then you'll come back in November, December and say, here's what we know we can do, here's the money we know we have, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion between now and then with everybody, hopefully with the band parents, with the color guard parents, with everybody involved, and say, okay, is this the right thing to do, and are we doing it the best way possible? And there may be some changes in here. You may come with saying, we need to move this over here. So schematically, it's just your very first phase. So be curious to see what that, but one of the things we make sure is that everybody's on board with this, all the way down to Mr. Petruski and Ms. Sosa and everybody to say, okay, this is the best we can do. So.
And I believe, I don't have the schedule on here. Do you remember the schedule for this moving forward? schematic and final design? Okay. So we're looking at about December coming back with final design.
So do we need to actually, this is an action item, correct, or no? We need a motion? What page is that? Page 102?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the conceptual design for Samuel Clemens High School Band Hall renovation and addition.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We've already had discussion. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Next, we will have board consideration and possible action regarding the timeline and procedure to utilize to fill the Place 3 vacancy on the Board of Trustees. A draft timeline, which is being passed out for filling the Place 3 vacancy on the Board of Trustees by appointment, is attached for consideration and possible action. The appointment to this position will be for the remainder of the unexpired term ending in November 2019 and will be placed on the ballot of the November 2019 regular trustee election. I guess I'll let Dr. Gibson and Dee Dee explain the timeline.
Yeah, Dee Dee designed this, and we started with, after a meeting last week with board president and after the team of 8 training, just basically backwards designing from a deadline for the October board meeting once that consensus was reached. So everything you see is designed back from the last step. It is doable. We got Priscilla today said that everybody had indicated the meetings were, is that a different set of meetings? I just heard, yay, good, we got everybody here.
Well, we had inquired with Ms. Dreisbach because she was not going to be here this evening, and she had indicated that she was available at all of the dates that we had as options.
Okay, so the next step is to check on everybody else's availability?
Right, and at this point tonight, it would be nice to have the first 2 meetings at a minimum set, and we can always add more meetings if needed. So if the board could look at the suggested dates for consideration and look at your calendars and see which dates you are available.
The only one that I was not available for was the September 15th date.
Okay.
I was available for all the others, I think. I let Priscilla be aware of that.
So you would actually like them to indicate?
Well, we have September 11th as a date for the board to have a called meeting to review applications and determine the number of applicants to interview if there is, if you want to set a number, and decide on interview questions. If we could get that one set, if everybody's available on the 11th, we can go ahead and set that date, and then we can look at another date to have the first round of interviews.
And so on the timeline, the dates for consideration, the 2-3 blocks are all depending on the amount of applicants and the duration that trustees are willing to sit at one time.
That's correct.
If that makes sense. But this probably represents the maximum if you spread it out.
I don't think there would be the need for more than 3 or 4 meetings to interview.
Right. But this would be if there were 20 applicants and every one of them was an hour long.
Well, I remember the last time this happened back in '04, there were, I think, 14
There were 14,
applicants.
yeah.
I know I was one of them, so I have a memory of it.
I do too.
So we'll confirm that the 11th is good, and then what I think I heard you say is that you would like to look at least that first block.
Right,
and
either the 13th,
we said no to the 15th, right?
Yeah, or Wednesday the 19th possibly.
And ideally, we're trying to have the other 6 trustees there, but that's not required by law.
It is not
Just a quorum.
required, but we do need a quorum.
We would need
If
4.
at all possible, it's nice to have a full, all
Sure.
trustees available.
Once we go further into the process, once you start interviewing, let's just say you have 4.
Mhm.
Will the same 4 have to be there continually, or does it not matter? Can you have 4 through 6?
There's no
You know,
legal, I think,
there's no
guideline to
legal-
that. It's just kind of practically what's, seems
Right.
better for the board.
Okay, it's just that, you know what I'm saying, if 4 interview candidates A through C, and then 2 other board members show up later on, they don't get to sort of interview, you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to have a
correct.
consistent panel.
That
So everybody gets
consistency,
interviewed.
I think, would be ultimately desirable. So I'm just gonna say it this way, so 13th? You got one on Tuesday, and then you'd have one on Thursday, just get
We
going?
have Tuesday, the 11th, for the initial meeting.
Right.
Non-interviews. So is everybody good with the 11th?
Okay, so we've got that one,
Okay.
and then we would turn right around on that next Thursday night and start the interviews.
You could start the interviews on that Thursday night, if everybody's available for that evening.
Well, and if I remember correctly, the interviews are actually held in closed session, is that
That's
correct?
Correct.
If, the other questions you were asking, if not every board member could be there, we could record that, and those board members that miss it could actually hear those recordings, that way it would be up to speed, to be able to make a better decision.
They
Is that
would
a
have to
possibility?
come to the district office and they could listen to the recording.
All right, so I was thinking, so in case a board member wanted to know what happened, if they happened to miss something, they could at least catch up at that time. Because we would still seal that anyway, because it would be held in closed session anyway.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
So there will be a way around if board members missed or something.
So the initial is September 11th,
September
and
11th
the
to
turnaround
review the
on 13th.
applications. And we could go ahead and post it to interview on the 13th, if that works out for everyone.
Yeah, and then, so basically what happens then, depending on how many applications there are and what the feeling is, you start picking more dates. Are these gonna be 30-minute interviews? Are they gonna be 45-minute interviews?
Right.
Are they gonna be hour-long interviews? Are they gonna be 90-minute interviews? That question has to be
Those are
decided.
things the board will need to decide that Tuesday, the 11th.
Okay. And then you have a list of questions that were utilized in the previous one that you'll send to the board, but then Mr. Westbrook wanted us to ask you all to look at those and then see if there are any other questions prior to September 11. So we kind of have a list started, if you will. We don't have a blank piece of paper. We have a rough draft of questions that the board would like to ask.
Yeah, the board should have some ability to input when it comes to questions, I believe.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
We'll send that list out, and then if, just request input from, feedback from the board members as to additional questions or modifications to questions.
Are there any do's or don'ts that a board member,
Yeah, well, that's a good, I think we'll provide the illegal questions for interviews for personnel. Just as, and I don't know if that's applicable to this, but I would assume that would be a good thing to not ask those questions if they're questions that are disallowed during our personnel interviews. That's a good point.
Can we ask them if they graduated from a university, which university it was?
If you said as a requirement that
I
they
think
must
we need
have a
more Sam
university
Houston State
degree.
graduates up here myself, but that's just me talking.
Okay.
All right.
I think we're good.
I think we're good. Are there any other questions, concerns about this moving forward?
So I guess starting tomorrow, we're going to put out information to request people to apply and that the position's available.
We're going to put it out on Thursday. We're giving ourselves a day to get the packets completed and put some information out on possible dates for interviews. So did the board determine the 13th would be a day that you all would be available?
Yeah, and I guess I was just saying that's the most aggressive approach, to have the meetings back to back and get started if everybody's
Right.
available.
If everyone's available.
Well, we need a motion
Yeah, and
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve filling the vacancy for unexpired term for place 3 on the Board of Trustees by appointment, utilizing the process and timeline as discussed and presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Dee Dee, correct me if I'm wrong. Last time we did this, didn't we set didn't it set a 30-minute time limit?
The interviews were, yes, 30-minute interviews and 15-minute discussion before the next interview.
That's right. 'Cause
It
I
was
was trying to
45
remember.
minute.
Right, you're right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is it strictly questions, or is there possibility of having like a sort of a 2, 3, 5-minute a personal presentation to the board?
You
know
could
what I'm saying?
structure it that way, yeah.
Oh, that's totally up to us. Okay.
Well, is that final question of anything else you'd like to share with us, or just something like that that kind of allows somebody to have an open-ended answer? Yeah.
As it turns out, it's kind of funny, there's a board member here that was there on the board side of the table, and I was on the other side of the table, so we actually have both points of view of how that transpired.
But unfortunately,
so.
we didn't select you, Ed. I forget
know,
what.
I know.
No,
It's
I think
true.
like.
It's true. I had to run on my
but
own.
two or three ultimately became board members that were there. So it was one of those things where.
There were 3 that were.
Catherine Finley.
There were
Ed-
3 that
or-
were interviewed. None of us were selected. We all ran in the next election and all won.
Scott, no, I'll let you guys know. Does anybody remember Joe Trevino?
Oh, yes.
I'll just share this now since we're here. But it was we had a pretty contentious board at that time, and so I had my friends, so nobody wanted to vote for them. Other people had their friends, so nobody wanted to vote for them, and nobody knew this Joe Trevino guy. So we're like, let's just pick him. So that's how it all worked out. But just hopefully we'll do a better job this time, right? Nothing against Joe Trevino, but no, just so the next meeting is a process to go through how we want to do it, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And review applicants, 2 weeks.
That's
We'll
right.
know how
and we
many-
can set
exactly.
the dates and set the amount of time we intend to spend at each interview.
One other question, how will this be communicated? We're talking online, social media, newspaper, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
Social media, online, probably get the information out to all of our advisory committee members since they are involved with the district through the chamber.
I would think all 3, or 2 chambers in Northeast Partnership, they have a email group that we could push through. I mean, they would probably be happy to do that.
Could we put a news article that the Herald might pick up?
We can
put one out, but the problem with the Herald is it's too late to put it in this week, and it will be 1 day in there before the due date the following week. So it's a cost that's probably not going to be very effective.
Well, I mean, I wasn't talking about cost, I was talking about just a news article, just make a press release.
Well, Ed
Well,
Ed
sure,
does that,
we
so
will do
we'll
that,
see
the
if they
press
pick
release.
up.
That's
Or the
part of
Express News
social
might pick it
media
up.
press release as well.
Right.
But as far as getting in the newspaper, no.
Right. I was just every avenue we can use, might as well get it all out there, so. Okay, thanks.
We will start electronic advertisement day after tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just, and by the way, if you all would proof this document, and if all that looks good, this is what's going out day after tomorrow. I mean, not now, but just let us know if you see anything or want any changes to it.
Right. We'll be reviewing this again tomorrow before we get it out to the public.
All right, there's been a motion and a second.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve fill in the vacancy for the unexpired term for place 3 on the Board of Trustees by appointment.
We already had that.
We already did it, Gary.
I thought,
Now we have a second.
Yeah.
I thought you were asking for the motion. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, we've already had the motion. All those in favor of the motion that was presented by David and seconded by Mr. Finley, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Request for board action, appointment of board member as delegate to the 2018 TASB Delegate Assembly presented by Robert Westbrook. Historically, the Board of Trustees has chosen an official voting delegate and alternate to the TASB Delegate Assembly each year. This year, the official delegate designation must be returned to TASB by August 30th, 2018. I think last year it was myself and Mr. Perkins. We're both allowed to go. As a TASB director, I'm gonna be there anyway, but, were you the voting member? Who was the voting member? So, do I hear any nominations for who wants to be a delegate this year?
I'll nominate Amy Dreisbeck. I mean, it would be good for her too. I mean, that's.
Okay. Well, we need an alternate. You want? I won't be here. Oh, you won't be there? You won't be there?
I won't be there on that day either.
I can do that.
You can do that?
Yeah. I've done it before, so I can do it again.
So I'll nominate, or I move that the Board of Trustees approve or nominate Amy Dreisbeck to be the delegate and Ed Finley to be the alternate delegate to the 2018 TASB Delegate Assembly.
Is Amy going?
She is.
She is going, she is going, okay, I was just making sure.
She has to be there for, at least for.
I know she said she's looking, so she's, all right.
You're going, right? Okay, so Ed's going.
All right, there's a motion on the floor for the Board of Trustees to appoint trustees to the voting delegate and alternate to the 2018. The delegate is Amy. The alternate is Mr. Finley. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Congratulations, Amy. She'd be like, what? Yeah, should have been here. Board may recess to greet and visit member. Ooh, board member. Let's take a 10-minute board recess.
Do you want to go ahead and call?
You want to just go to closed session?
Yeah. Yes.
We do need to go to closed session.
We have 3
Board President, that's me. This board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.074, authorization to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an officer or employee. 551.072, authorization to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would have detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person. Time is now 8:41. Let's go to closed session. 4 people. We're now back in open session. The time is now 9:03. Request for board action, employment of contractual personnel, Linda Cannon.
Yes, the positions on the employment list as presented in closed session are replacing positions for the 18-19 school year and will be funded out of the 18-19 general operating budget.
Need a motion?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the employment list as presented of contractual personnel for the 2018-2019 school year. As
Second.
presented in closed session.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Request for board consideration and possible action. Authorize the superintendent to enter into negotiations for real estate presented by Matt Rivera and Wayne Pruski.
If the board is willing, if they would authorize the superintendent to negotiate as per closed session.
Yeah, I move that the board approve authorizing the superintendent to negotiate a real estate transaction up to the amount no more than what we discussed in closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Thank you. Request for board action, revisions to the superintendent's areas of focus presented by Robert Westbrook. In closed session, we went over, there were 3 changes, recommended changes to the superintendent's areas of focus. If I can have a motion to accept.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve revisions to school year 18-19 superintendent's areas of focus as discussed in closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Although, any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Review of board agenda, planning calendar, request for future discussion and action items.
And Mr. Westbrook, there's a couple of things we want to distribute real quickly. And the first one, and we will send this out tomorrow electronically, and we'll send it to the board. We'll do the carbon copy to the ELT or cabinet. And then it also hit me, we need to make sure that our community members of our committees also receive this. Priscilla? Got it? Okay. Because they're part of this also. So our Dr. Patrisky, Ms. Sever, that just left, this applies to them as well. So we need to make sure they get this. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows the structure for September the 4th is for individual committee members, including community members of these committees, to make a individual observation statement. So if any committee member, including community member, wants to ask some questions just to get ready for that, because the order here is that September is individual observations, then you bring those individual observations together, and then you're trying to make committee observations for November. Then you take those observations and you transfer those into recommendations, and then you complete the recommendations in March. So Mr. Pivto, if I can pick on you as an example. So you're September the 4th, you're on budget committee now. So if you are thinking about, there's an individual observation. I've got this observation that I want to say, and you want to talk to Ms. Maloney and ask a question or two, because on September the 4th, we're going to start and say, okay, Mr. Pivito, we had the meeting on this date, we went through these things, and what was your observation? And we're going to kind of go around the committee and if there's any public there, they hear it. Staff members, we're inviting the cabinet to it. Cabinet's going to hear it. It's going to be a good teach piece for that. And we'll just see from those individual observations. Does that make sense to everybody? I did not want to say this for the first time at 6:01 p.m. on September the 4th. If everybody follows what I'm saying, because I want to give everybody plenty of time to be thinking between now and then. And does that make sense? Clear as mud? Everybody okay? All right, so we'll send those out tomorrow, including to community members. And then Priscilla did a really good job today of capturing mine and Dee Dee's notes from the team of 8 the other night. And first of all, thank you trustees for a good team of 8 meeting. Well, and again, this is just kind of a working document because we're moving in now to a second, finishing up the team of 8 with a new trustee, right? That was determination. These were the findings from the other night. And then maybe some possible follow-up actions. And so throughout the meeting, these were the things that trustees were saying were recommended changes or maybe a way to address a certain item. We didn't want too much time to go by without capturing this. If we missed anything, take these with you. If we missed anything, let us know. That was a cross-section of mine and Dee Dee's notes, and we'll send a copy to Ed Vara also, our facilitator. We'll ask him. Like, okay, did we get most of it, if not all of it? And then lastly, the September calendar that Priscilla prepares for you all. And then, John, you said September 22, September. Do you know about the coin tosses? I remember that. Maybe Priscilla asked you. Did y'all get that? Okay, you got it. All right, good. Thank you. Because I just remember that question being asked. Awesome. And then we will be plugging in the dates that the board just talked about earlier tonight into this calendar, right, for the called meetings. Are they already in there? They're in there? Okay, Priscilla's got them in there.
And Dr. Gibson, one more item. We were going to ask the members of the policy committee if they, with regards to the policy review session, we're going to be coming up with discussion on section D in September, correct? So, excuse me, so would the policy committee like to meet to review that section of policies prior to the discussion in September?
Yeah, and that's...
We're all here.
Right.
I'm game
if we can
You're
fit
game,
it
Patrisky?
into a day in September.
Okay, so it's a good example might be that the BDAA that kind of got pulled a while ago,
Right.
that would have gone through the committee. That's a good example. So we'll do that with D, E, F, G.
Right, we would have E and F in October as a committee meeting and D in September.
Okay, and so that chart where we wound up, that we would run through that with the policy committee before it gets on the board agenda. So say again?
Only have to meet twice because we'll be finished with that review. I mean, we wouldn't have to meet in the spring, just.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only talking about the policy review now,
Correct,
right?
yeah.
There aren't any other recommended policy changes at this time? So that's all we're talking about is the TASB policy review. So, but that would be a meeting in September and a meeting in October early, right?
Earlier, yes,
First 2
before
weeks.
the meeting.
Yeah, so we have to be in the first 2 weeks.
So
But probably the first week actually would be better.
Priscilla can see what's left on the calendar for dates and see if policy committee can meet.
Yeah, is that on our possible meeting? Well, let's let Priscilla go
Yes.
to work on that with the committee members. It's the two of you, is that right?
Patrisky.
And Dr. Patrisky, is that right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
Okay.
we'll let her work on that tomorrow.
All right. Oh,
And then Jerry, did you
Jerry.
have anything you wanted to?
We've discussed it. We've discussed September 4th. We've discussed September 11th. There's a regular board meeting on the 19th. And then we also, this calendar has a good summary of the things. What I didn't see is the new Rose Garden Elementary School ribbon cutting, Thursday, September 20th at 6 p.m. And then don't forget your coin toss schedule. And then the others are, the other standard chamber and partnership meetings are in here.
The 20th, we, are looking at about an hour, and then tours afterwards, people can stay around. We've got special guests potentially coming that, can I say? Okay, never mind. Robert Westbrook will be making the keynote address at the Rose Garden dedication or ribbon cutting or ceremony. We had a special guest that graduated from Rose Garden that we were trying to work on a calendar conflict, the sheriff of Bexar County. So, but he sends his wishes to, because he attended the old Rose Garden and he just kind of had fond memories of it. We'll have a nice ceremony. We'll have a cake. We'll do some tours of it. So make sure to put it on your calendar.
All right. There's no objections. We're adjourned at 9:15.